Thank you for this day and for the ability to congregate and to be able to work for the best reason we have, our children and their futures. We pray for our schools, the people that work in them. We pray for the parents, the students, and all who contribute to our children's success. We give thanks for the building blocks that you give us to succeed. We are grateful for our buildings and our books and our teachers, but most importantly for the time you grant us each day on this earth. We are thankful for the patience given to us by you to do our work. Keep guiding us and encouraging us, and show us all those in need so we may strive to comfort and provide for them. We also ask at this time for uplifting for the Rutherford County Schools and their director and his son Asher. And we ask for healing and comfort for the family and all those that were tremendously affected by the storms and the tragedy. In your name we pray. Amen. I would like to ask the basketball team to stand and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Go ahead.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Odd, it's great to see a big group here. I do want to take care of one little issue. Miss Rose, she's here. We see her. And so she's attending virtually today. It's good to have you and your friend. Can you hear us okay? All right, great. Was supposed to have the TSBA Board of Distinction by Mr. Welch, but he's unable to come, so we're going to have to put that off till next month. And so we'll move right to recognitions. Dr. Lawson, you want to do this? Michelle Henley, the ACTE Teacher of the Year.
I'm gonna call somebody up who can speak much more eloquently than I can. Mr. Skipper, you know exactly what you know much better than I do the awards and what it truly means.
Yeah, come on up. I guess Michelle, come on up. So we are very fortunate. I've spoken to you guys as board members and to our community all the time about the success that we have at Coffee County school system with our career technical education. But I've also told you that the reason for our success is our instructors. That's the bottom line. Like, that's what drives our programs. So you get tired of probably hearing me praise on them. So this is an opportunity where I submitted Ms. Henley as a valued for Teacher of the Year in the state of Tennessee. And the Association for Career and Technical Education is the state organization that kind of governs all of career and technical education. And so I submitted her. She went through an evaluation process, through a panel, and she was selected as this year's Career and Technical Teacher of the Year for the state of Tennessee. So.
Thank you very much. You're welcome to come up here and say a word or two.
She will be at Summer Institute in July when we have our annual conference, Career Technical Education. So she will be recognized there and receive her plaque and stuff from the state. So.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, another recognition that we have today. We had a program that achieved heights that have only been matched one previous time in school history. And so wanted to make sure we recognize this group of students because, you know, while there are no seniors I don't think there was a single senior player on the team, was there not? Okay. But we wanted to make sure we got the recognition in a timely fashion this year and that kind of thing because by the time we hit the ground running next year, it'll be practice time for a new season. But I'm going to ask if Coach Cope wants to come up and Oh, Mr. Parsley. There we go. Sorry about that. Mr. Parsley, if you want to come up.
So, in case you haven't heard,
Microphone, sir. We hadn't heard. No, tell us.
Tell us.
in case you haven't heard, the girls' basketball team had a fairly good season, and they finished with a 33-4 record. Ladies, go ahead and stand up. All of you stand up. The team members this year consisted of Audrey Patton, Andon Selvog, J.D. Nagadula, Ella Arnold, who's in softball tonight, Bella Van Zandenberg, Jules Farrell, Reese Finch, Olivia Vinson, Natalie Barnes, Kaysen Morgan, Ava McIntosh, Lily Mathern, Morgan Spears, Shanna Gannon, who is also in softball, and manager Lily Duke, as well as our coaches, head coach Joe Pat Cope, and Matt Vinson, assistant coach, is with us tonight, and then two other assistants, Anita Gannon and Reese Chumley, are at softball this evening. But they finished with a 33-4 record, and they won district for the 7th year in a row. Of course, some different players, but some of these players would have been on multiple district championship teams. They won region this year, and they won sub-state, which earned them the right to go to the state tourney, where they finished as state semifinalist. Dr. Lawson said it. That's the best we have finished, actually the second best finish we have ever had in school history. So we're just proud of the season that they had, and wanted to recognize them before you, the board.
Thank you. Let's get them up here and get a picture. Come up. Yeah, get up there, coaches.
Congratulations,
Joe Pat, you'll make
ladies.
this bunch look better.
Congratulations, lady. Wow, what a year. So proud of y'all.
Joe Pat, would you like to? I know I can't get them to say anything. Would you like to say a word?
Just thank y'all very much. Appreciate your support, and proud to be in Manchester and Coffee County.
Well, thank you. It was very exciting. I did go down to Murfreesboro, and thank y'all, but also thank the community and the people. The number of fans there from Coffee County was amazing. It was really amazing. So y'all put a lot of life in our community, and so we appreciate that. Does the board have any questions or comments?
We're just really excited and happy for you.
Keep up the good work.
Great job, yeah.
Thank y'all.
You're amazing.
Wow.
Well, thank you, and thank you for so many of you coming. I mean, that's great. It's good to see. I know a couple of them had other obligations,
Softball.
but it's very good to see so many here. So, congratulations on everything y'all accomplished.
Thank y'all.
See y'all next
Thank you
year.
very much.
And you all are welcome to stay, but you're very free to leave. So.
Thank y'all.
Fast enough.
They look so different in clothes, in your regular clothes. And they're not that big, are they?
No, they're little.
To be so good.
Junior.
I know. They're really fast.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and there was no public comments signed up for today. So at this time, I would like to entertain a motion to accept the agenda and pass the general consent items at the same
Mr.
time.
Chairman, I would like to propose a motion to amend the agenda to include a discussion of a special meeting to discuss the disposition of the director's contract.
To discuss the director's contract.
Yes.
To add, now, I don't know if we can discuss the director's contract.
No, this would be have a special meeting, so this would be to an amendment to discuss to vote on having a special meeting.
Okay.
So I believe that would be amend the agenda,
To
and it
add
would probably
a-
become agenda item number 18.
But, yeah, add one item, number 18. Okay? There's been a motion to accept the agenda and the general consent items, but add item 18 to discuss a special call meeting. Had a motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second, Mr. Gilly. All right, so Mr. Ballard. Mr. Gilly. Okay. Any questions? Hearing none, Mr. Cordell, we're going to start with you today.
Aye.
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 No.
Ms. Rose was an aye, and the chair votes aye. So that passes 8-1. Okay? So we will have 18 items on the agenda instead of 17. Action item number 1, Bold Architect and Engineering Proposal. Dr. Lawson or Mr. Shores, do we need to?
Well, I will let Wold take over any questions and that kind of thing, and say any words they need to say. If you recall, back in April, Wold was awarded. Well, basically, the board voted to move forward with Wold and have them start to at least prepare a proposal, and that you have that in the documents on the computer. And so that way, I'm going to let them say a few words, and then they are here to answer questions, and that's kind of where we are on that one.
Okay, do we want to get a motion first, or let them present for a minute and then?
What would you gentlemen prefer? Would you prefer to make a statement before they make a motion to move forward, or do you have a preference?
We don't have a preference.
Okay. Yeah, it's at your discretion, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's let them make a statement, and then we may have to make a motion if there's much discussion.
Okay.
Welcome, and
Thank
go
you.
right ahead.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for using the microphone.
My name's Steve Griffin, and I'm principal, which means I'll be responsible for making sure all the resources of our firm are available to Coffee County, to the school board, to make this project successful. I'd like to introduce Vaughn Dirks, who is our educational planner, and Jacob Cherry, who is our project manager. So we're going to have a quick presentation, hopefully explains our fee basis, and we're here to answer any questions you may have. So I'll turn it over to Vaughn.
Thank you. And as Steve said, we'll go quickly through this since we had a chance to talk to you about our process in the interview and how we would go forward with designing the projects. But it occurred to us that one of the things that you're trying to determine right now is what actually are the projects. We have a loose scope, but there's discussion about Hickerson Elementary in particular, or whether that would be an addition or a replacement. So we have to get at that first, and that's really the pre-design process. So I'd like to walk you through what we would do as part of that process. The first thing that we would do would be meetings with your administration and your staff to determine how are you using the spaces right now? What needs to be taught? Is it just classrooms? Are there other components to that have to take place? So we could start developing what those needs look like. We'd want to take a look at comparing the projects you did recently, since a lot of the additions and renovations will be based on work you've done before. Run the square feet for that so we could determine what are the sizes we're looking at across the board for those projects, as well as potentially run a square foot analysis of your other elementary schools so you can see how the new buildings or the new additions would match up against that. We'd also take a look at capacity analysis. One of the questions you had during the interview was, what are we talking about, just the capacity for the enrollment we have now, or are we looking at the future? Next slide. So we would take a look at both of the buildings that we're talking about now to determine what the current capacity is, and if you wanted us to look at your other elementary schools so we could look at capacity across the district, we'd be able to do that. Look at what it would take to master plan for the future. We always think that at some point you may need to do additions again, so how would the building support that in the future, so you get a holistic picture across the board. And then putting all that together, the deliverable would be a space program. And what the space program is it tells us what's the square feet that we're designing to, both in terms of the net square feet as well as a gross square foot for the building, assuming quarter width, bathrooms, etc. So you'd have that as a part of the pre-design document. The other component that we'd be working on simultaneously would be a facility analysis for the buildings. And this is something that Jacob and our team would walk the buildings to take a look at everything that they're made out of, what type of maintenance you have currently, what the life cycles are for those components, and put together a facility analysis document that would say, with everything you have in these buildings, here's what you can expect to spend on them in terms of needed repairs, not only today, but into the future, so that you have that. It's an especially important part when we start looking at Hickerson and determining, does it make more sense to look at addition and renovation versus replacement? So the standalone deliverable for that would be a facility analysis component. We'd also take a look at the sites, determining not only the topography, but how the utilities are working on the sites, what the traffic patterns look like, what issues we see, where expansion's possible on the site, so that we've got a good idea of, if you do move forward with these, what are the impacts that we see from a site perspective. We'd also want to take a look at how that relates to the access drives coming in and what the city or county might have being planned as part of that. The deliverable would be a site report. Jacob and the team would be running code analysis for the building, so we could take a look at, for both buildings, what code issues currently exist, how would they relate to the codes the building are under now, and what would it take to add to those buildings if you put additions and renovations on, so we can understand all of the code impacts for that. The deliverable would be an issues report that we'd have. All these would go into a 3-ring binder for each of the buildings so that we can see exactly what we're looking at for the future. And from there, once we have all those pieces and components and we can take a look at, this is exactly what you want to do, we'd start doing diagrams for each of the sites showing this is potentially how these would go together. They're not floor plans. They're really documents for us to understand this is exactly where the additions would go, what the costs would be, so we could develop those budgets, what issues we see, so we could start laying out a couple of different variations on those for each site. And importantly, for Hickerson, we'd be running a replacement versus additions report so that you could see, based on the different factors, here's what each of those might cost to do, so that you could make an evaluation with how you want to move forward. It's very important, if you're going to move forward with the county, to determine how do you want to do these things, that you've got that analysis in place. So we'd be doing all of this as part of the pre-design report. At the same time, Jacob and the team are building budgets that include not only the construction cost estimates, but also potential soft costs for that, fees, testing, permits, furniture, fixtures, and equipment budgets that go along with that, anticipating what contingency looks like, determining not only the construction cost now, but if you were to build it a year from now, 2 years from now, what would we want to have in there for inflation and contingency, as well as milestone schedules for when you want to occupy the buildings, how long construction will take, how long the design process will take. So we think this is really, when you were discussing which firm to go with and what we were actually doing, this is what we would be doing as part of that pre-design report to get you to the point where you could say, these are exactly the projects we want to do, and you'd have a very fixed budget and schedule that would go along with each of those. So in terms of that whole process, there's also a lot of meetings that have to take place as part of that.
Yeah, that's one of the most important things is the amount of meetings we have, and there's no formula to that. We will meet as often and as many times as it takes to get this information assembled for you as a school board. We don't nickel and dime our clients. You know, if we have one meeting or if we have 20, there's no difference as far as a fee goes. We're in it, we're in it for the long haul, as you are, and so that's going to be the most important thing. We do a better job than most firms, I believe, in communicating, and we like to keep our clients in the loop and have no surprises, because the worst thing an architect can do is surprise the client, because usually there's a problem.
In terms of the fee itself, we broke it out 2 different ways of looking at it. So with the pre-design phase that we just talked about, we have that as a fixed fee of $15,000 to do all of that analysis going through, as well as 7 cents a square foot for the facility analysis for both Hickerson as well as East Coffee. Now those are optional, but if you're looking at evaluating, do you replace versus do addition and renovation, we strongly recommend that you have a good idea of what it would take to do the maintenance on those buildings. If you need us to put the buildings into some type of CAD or Revit format, we could do that for 5 cents a square foot for the buildings as well. All of these fees for that, the $20,600, those would all be credited against the future if you move forward with the projects and we go into design. So all of that money goes back into it, and then we have fixed fees for that as well. If it's a new building, it's 6% of the estimated construction cost. If it's addition and renovation, it's 7.5% for that. But I want to point out, and this is very important, that that includes every single consultant that we would have as part of the process. A lot of firms exclude civil engineering or interior design as part of that, or third-party cost estimating. We have that as part of our process, and that's all included. And when you factor that into it, it really brings down our fee, or it has our competition's fee go up, depending on how you look at it. So it's very important to understand apples to apples as part of that process as you go forward. So with that, that's we hope we could explain, what are you actually going to do? This is what we're going to do. This is how we go about doing it, and this is how we base our fees on that. And we'd be happy to answer questions.
Okay.
Yeah, a big part of this whole effort is to determine exactly what the scope of work will be. So, you know, no one has any doubt about what's going to happen at these two schools and why. And also, we also have to give you credible information that you can take to your county commission and, you know, and help them understand what we're doing and why we're doing it and how much it costs. So if you have any questions,
All right.
feel free to ask.
So Dr. Lawson, what do we need on our motion
Well,
for?
basically, the motion would need, now that you've been informed of the proposal and that kind of thing, the board would need to move, they would need to make a motion to move forward with the proposal as it stands. And so at that point, basically it would have to be a contract at that point. And so, I mean, that would have to go to the board attorney for him to make sure everything is good. But the board, this approval process will initiate that, and we can move forward. So basically a motion to move forward to the next step with Wold.
And does this come with your recommendation?
It does.
Okay. You've heard the director's recommendation to make a motion to move forward with Wold with the proposal they provided.
I'll make that motion.
Mr.
I'll second.
Parsley and Ms. Jennifer. Now, are there any questions for these fine folks?
I'm glad you talked about maintenance, you know, because long-term, so do you really approach this from like a life cycle cost approach where you're looking at the total cost over the life? And
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, we'd be short-sighted, we wouldn't be giving you good service if we didn't look at the life cycle cost. You know, because these buildings are gonna last, you know, a lot of systems have buildings that are 50 years plus older. We're working in Giles County right now, they have a couple of buildings that are that old. So, yeah, we have to look at life cycle cost, it's not just initial cost. And we have to weigh, okay, if we're gonna spend $2 more in initial cost, but over 10 years it's gonna save you $30 more, and we'll have that discussion. But yes, sir, it's life cycle cost.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gilly, go ahead.
Is this 6% or the 7.5%, does that include construction management as well, or just the architect and engineering?
Construction administration, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So in what Mr. Gilly's asking, there'll be no need to have someone else overseeing that, correct? As with these other projects that have just
Wouldn't
been
think
on.
so.
No, you really don't.
Okay.
I mean, we'll have, you know, there's several project delivery methods you may want to consider, but one of them, you know, is design bid. Another one is design CM at risk. You know, there's several different delivery methods, but whatever delivery method you choose, we're still obligated to perform based on the owner architect agreement, our services during construction.
Ms. Jones, go ahead.
I noticed on the new construction versus renovation, the percentage is lower for new construction,
Yes, ma'am.
6%.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Really, if you think about the old days when we used to draw by hand, it's because in additions and renovations, you have demolition drawings that you have to create, and there's a lot more field verification of what does the existing building have versus what do you have to take apart, how do you have to put that back together. New buildings are actually easier to draw, and so it's a lower cost percent for us.
That's something to take into consideration in long haul. Also, did y'all do Baxter's? And I forgot what county that is. Okay.
More questions for Wold?
Y'all are very good at your presentations and at answering questions. So I look forward to see what you bring it to us next. I'm looking forward to looking at it.
I think one of the important things that Vaughn talked about all the services that are included in our fee. I mean, you go through, it's a tier design. I mean, that's over and above basic service. Civil engineering, site engineering, that's a part of our basic service. Landscape architect, third-party cost estimating, because if you ever talk to an architect and ask them about how well they do estimates, and they say they do a good job, run as fast as you can, because we do a lousy job. We don't like doing it, and we don't do a good job at it, so we have a third-party cost estimator. Food service consultants are included in that, acoustic consultants, which has become ever more important these days. So there's a lot of things included in our fees that typically aren't included in basic services for architect services.
Thank you. All right, well, at this time, we're going to vote on action item number 1 to approve the Wold Architect and Engineering proposal. Mr. Gilly, you're first.
Aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. That passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming
We're ready
down.
to
We
get
look forward to
started.
hearing from you.
Oh, you'll be hearing from us a lot.
I'll bet.
This is
I'll be getting tired of
exciting.
hearing from
When the
us.
bill shows up.
I was just telling this young lady sitting beside me, the first time I did work in Coffee County, Bobby Cummins was superintendent.
That's 2 days ago.
Yeah. Well, I was a young man, man, I had to handle it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to action item number 2, the Technology Responsible Use Policy.
I'm sorry, Dr. Nestor.
Action item number 2, Technology Responsible Use Policy.
Yes, sir. I'll just introduce
Right
it.
there.
Mr. Damewood is here to answer more specific questions. Basically, as everybody is aware, technology changes at an incredibly rapid pace. If you've been paying attention to the news at all over the last 8 to 16 months, you see AI all the time. We had nothing about artificial intelligence in our technology policy. There were other things that needed to be updated, and so basically Mr. Damewood has completely overhauled this. It used to be called the, the acceptable use policy, but now it's the responsible use policy. I will say the wording in our board policy still says acceptable use policy, and we'll address that when we get to that particular policy. It doesn't change anything. That it is just a different term now than what used to be. But this has been updated. Mr. Damewood has spent quite a bit of time working on this. I've looked through it. Others have looked through it and had their chance to make contributions and that kind of thing. And basically, this just brings our responsible use policy for the district to back as modern as it can be. It'll probably be outdated in just a few years, but we'll change it then. I believe, if I'm not incorrect, I believe there used to be a separate one for staff and students. This one brings both of those together. So it's one responsible use policy instead of 2 separate ones. But anything I missed on the introduction, Mr. Damewood?
No, sir.
Okay, but basically the motion would be to accept this version, the new technology responsible use policy, and then once the motion is second, then ask any questions needed.
Okay, and it comes with your recommendation to accept this policy?
It does.
Okay, you've heard the director's recommendation to accept the Technology Responsible Use Policy that we've been presented. I'd like to open the floor for a motion to accept it.
Make that motion.
Ms. Jones?
Second.
And Mr. Crabtree made the second. Okay. Questions for Mr. Damewood on this?
Does this address artificial intelligence?
Yes, that's one of the
legislation?
big sections. If you look through it, near the end of it is where the AI intelligence section is, right before the signature sheets. Well, before the internet safety, so maybe page 6, I believe, and then at the bottom of page 6 and goes on through page 7. And I don't believe the state has put in a requirement for AI and AU, but they're probably going to do it next year. I think they were going to, and they didn't come through, so I suspect that that's going to be something that the state is going to actually require at some point in time.
That goes back to those areas of of concern, which was plagiarism.
Well,
back
that's
in
one of the
front.
things, yes.
So this-
There are statements about that in there.
Tell you what, Reggie.
More questions? Not, we're going to vote to approve action item number 2, technology responsible use policy. Mr. Ballard, you're first.
Aye.
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 Ms. Rose? Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes 9-0. Action item number 3, surplus items. Mr. Shores, you want to address this?
Yes, we have a bus that needs to be surplused. It's at the end of its life, and there is no reason for us to put more money into it to repair it and get very little out of it. The other thing is we have calculators that were purchased many years ago, back when they could be used with the TCAP testing. They are no longer used. I'm going to suggest whenever a motion is made for these calculators to be surplus, but also to be able to give them to students that would like to have one to take home. If we surplus them and try to sell them on Gov Deals, you're just not going to get anything for them, and I think it'd be a better use for them to go to the students, and they might be able to use it at home sometime.
But that language would need to be added.
Okay. And that would come with your recommendation to surplus the bus and the calculators with the change of
With the calculator, with the ability for the calculators to be distributed to students who need one.
Okay. You've heard the
Yes, it does come in my recommendation.
All right. You've heard the director's recommendation to surplus school bus 9893 and the calculators with the stipulation that they can be given to students after surplus if they want it. Okay?
So moved.
Mr. Cordell made the
Second.
motion. Who made that? Mr. Parsley. Any questions on the calculators or? Hearing none. Mr. Parsley.
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Rose.
Aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. That passes 9-0. Use of Facility Republican Caucus requests for fees to be waived. Dr. Lawson.
Well, I think, is there a representative? Oh, right here. Yes. You want to step to the mic and explain?
My name is Greg Sandlin. I'm chairman of the Coffee County Republican Party. With the tragic and untimely passing of our county mayor, Judd Matheny, the Republican Party is required to have a caucus, run an election, to have a candidate for the August 1st general election. The Democratic Party will have to do the same. The timing was just such that there was no other way to find a candidate. It'd be too late for a primary. So the Coffee County High School is a great location, central for us. We're hoping to use the cafeteria area, and we were requesting a waiver of the rental fees for this event.
Okay. So you're requesting the use of the cafeteria area?
That's correct.
All right. So thank you, and we'll make a motion, and then we may have more questions for you in a moment. For Dr. Lawson's, they've requested to use the cafeteria, and the charge on that normally is $100. Is that correct? Or-
Yes, the charge is normally $100 per day. There is also a custodial fee that is required for the use of facilities, but that has traditionally been waived when there is going to be an employee present who can serve in that capacity. And so, but that is the fees that you're looking at this time, would be the $100 per day for the cafeteria plus the custodial service fee at $25 an hour with a minimum of 4 hours, so that'd be an additional $100, so a total of $200. Now, I will remind the board what has happened in the past. There has been a waiver of all fees before, but that's usually when there is a group that we have an active partnership with. I know in the past year we have waived all fees for the Coffee County Fair Board to use our auditorium, because we were also actively using the fairgrounds for practice for our wrestling program and our cheer program. We have waived fees for the sheriff's department to use the cafeteria and that kind of thing, but we have an active partnership with them in the form of our SRO program and that kind of thing. So there is some precedent for waiving fees, but since we've moved to this new form, I do not recall a time that we have waived fees for an organization with which the district does not have a partnership. So please keep that in mind.
Okay. So at this time, I would like to open the floor up for, if there is to be a motion,
Mr. Chairman, I would motion that we would accept this and waive all fees. This is really kind of a hardship case. I mean, it was unexpected with the passing of Mayor Matheny, and it is democracy in action. So I think it's a community service if we waive all fees on this.
Okay, so Mr. Ballard and Mr. Cordell. Any questions? Concerns?
And do you want to?
I have a question.
Yes, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I personally don't have any objection to this at all. We live in a pretty deep red county. Just want to make sure that we understand if we do this, are we to understand we do this for every political party that would come forward under this circumstance? Democrat, Libertarian, Green Party, Communist Party, I just want to make sure we can't make an exception for one party, that we would have to make that available to everyone. Am I correct in that?
Well, once you open the door to not charge the fee, yeah, not just political parties, I think you would open it to everyone. If you're not going to charge any fee, and it kind of sets a precedent. So I think that's where your liability could be.
That's just what I wanted to establish, that we would be establishing a precedent here. So
Yeah, and
I'm fine with it. I have no
Yeah.
objection.
I understand.
I just want to make sure we all understand that.
And I think that's why at some points we have found ways to do the custodial fee and have kept the other fee.
Okay, well,
I just want to make sure that it's recorded.
But that's a good question.
okay.
Is that correct, Dr. Lawson? Would you agree with that? Or
That is my interpretation. When you have I don't believe it just opens it up for political organizations. When you start looking at that, my interpretation of use of facility is it would be open to any organization at that point, because it's, and it is, an argument can be made that this is a special circumstance, but I'm not sure what the next special circumstance would be, but that would be up to the board to decide whether to waive these fees.
And I'd just like to clarify, this really is an extreme, emergency situation. There's no other alternative other than to have a caucus here. And I would probably do the same thing for the Democrats, because they're going to have a caucus too. It's
How much is it going to cost you?
nothing if the fees.
I know, how much are the fees? $250?
$350.
$350, and so the Republican Party cannot afford $350?
Well, no, ma'am, I think he said cafeteria, so it would be $100 for the cafeteria, and if there were no employees present, it would be $100 for
So
custodian.
it's just $100?
If there,
Be 200.
it'd be 200 total, unless there was an employee present to serve in the role of custodian, and then it becomes 100.
And I'm sure you'd have an employee probably present, possibly. Do you know? I just have a problem with waiving all fees for this when we don't waive them for, other people. We may just do away with fees. That's fine with me.
Yeah,
Because,
we
I just see how that would look to the community, because there's been, community organizations that have requested this, and we haven't waived entirely all the fees.
Yeah, I just have a philosophy, it never hurts to ask. So we
Right.
asked.
Right.
We actually rented your auditorium in February for a forum. And we paid something like $350, $400 for the full amount. And I think we got there too late to ask for a possible exemption. But it just seemed like a public facility. We're doing a public event. We expect 300 to 500 folks to turn out for this election, this caucus. And we just wanted to ask. Didn't know what all the other impacts might be, but we wanted to lay it, just ask for your consideration.
I will
Do we have
personally-
the funds? Yeah, we have some funds, but, you know.
I will personally donate that to keep us from getting into some kind of situation. I will.
Well,
I'll write you a check tonight.
Well, that's
But-
an option too.
But I just feel like that this may set a precedence for us. And, you know, if we waive everything for this, then we're gonna have everybody else wanting the same thing, and we've gotta treat everybody equally, whether it's the Communist Party or or whatever.
You have your territory. You've got to do what you
Right.
got to do. I understand.
Any more questions? So right now, the motion is to waive all the fees, the way it's presented.
I think with her offer, you'll just withdraw the motion.
Do what now?
If she's willing to, you know what I'm saying?
Or ask for a friendly amendment to amend and just include, approve, but include the fees.
To be paid.
And I would do this for the Democratic Party if they ask, because I just feel like that we're getting into a territory that we don't need to get into.
If you're going to discuss an amendment, I would encourage you, if you're going to discuss withdrawing the fee for the cafeteria, I would encourage you to add back in the motion that the custodial fees would be waived with an employee present. That's the way we've done it previously.
That's correct, if they could find an employee. But that would have to come from Mr. Ballard and Mr. Cordell because they made the motion.
I'm fine either way, withdrawing the motion and doing a new motion or amending the motion. It's probably cleaner to withdraw it to a new motion.
Okay.
So I withdraw my motion.
Okay. All right. So now we can open it up for a new motion. Would you like to make that, Mr. Ballard, or?
I move to.
Like to approve the use of
It would be, it would be approved, it would be approved the use of facility.
Approved use of facilities.
By the Republican Party for the caucus with the waiving of custodial fees
If
the-
an employee
if
was,
an
and they
employee
would
is
pay the
present.
$100 fee for the cafeteria, and they would not have to pay the custodial fee if an employee was present.
Frida will cover the rest.
Would you like to make that motion?
That would not have to be a part of the motion.
I'm not sure I want to make that motion. Frida,
Would you like to make that motion then?
Does anybody want to go on
What we
vacation
said,
while
that approve for them to use it.
And
And the custodial fees will be waived if a county, a school employee is present.
I like that motion.
Okay, so we've had the motion,
We're going to amend it that they're all going on vacation.
and do I have a second to that motion?
I will second that.
Mr. Ballard. Now, is everybody totally not clear? Or are they clear?
Clear as mud.
So basically, I think this is kind of what we've done in the past with other groups.
Yes, this is equivalent to what we've done with non-partnership groups in the past. This would mean the Republican Party would be charged $100 for the use of the cafeteria, no custodial fees with an employee present. Any arrangements outside of that between Ms. Jones and this party would be that's not what we're voting on.
All right, any questions about that? All right, we're going to vote to approve that use. Action item number 4. Miss Jennifer.
Aye.
Aye.
Miss Rose.
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. That passes 9-0. Thank you, and good luck.
I would say this, I think we may need to go back and revisit because I think a lot of people would probably feel the way she just said about this.
Yeah.
And about organizations that we let use them, so we probably should have a non-use. That way this wouldn't be, except for the school things that go on there.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. What are you requesting?
I'm just saying, should we look at it to explore the option of any organization, if we're didn't want to approve them to use it, should they even be allowed to fill out a form to do it?
Oh, well, what happens is if there is a use, there are some facility use requests that never come to the board. because either there's a scheduling conflict or the principal feels like it's not a realistic option, or there's safety concerns or liability concerns. So it actually has to go through several layers before it comes here. So some of that is stopped at either the building or district level before it makes it to the board. Is that what you're talking about?
Maybe, but I guess I would like to understand what goes through and what doesn't go through, maybe.
Okay.
And you don't have to do it now.
Right, I got you. Most things do go through.
Okay.
All right, but there have been.
What prompted this to not go through?
Well, when I
Ask
say
for a
go through,
waive.
that means go through to you guys.
Okay.
So this came through
Okay.
came through to the board. Okay?
Okay.
When I say doesn't go through, if we are concerned that the use could damage the facility in some way,
Okay.
if we can't get assurance that the gym floor is not going to be scratched up, if we don't get assurance that that tables won't be damaged or something like that, those kind of requests we never even bring to the board. Those don't even come in here if we don't feel comfortable that our infrastructure is protected, or there's any questions about of that type. So, but the most requests do make it to the board level. But there have been some that we've been concerned about damage to our facilities that the principal doesn't even approve those at the building level. But that's where it would start.
Okay. All right. Action item number 5, handrail bid, gym bleachers for the high school.
Okay. I tried to prepare the board a little bit about this in an email that I sent last week. And I think we have a representative from the company here. We talked about this, the board talked about this months ago, about adding handrails and steps in the gymnasium to the bleachers. And we were operating on an estimate that we had at that time. That estimate was in the it was a total of about $93,600 and some odd dollars. And so that was approved by the board. Now, however, there were some, when we told the company to move forward, my understanding is they got some more structured blueprints, and that, I believe. Okay. Yes, we have somebody here to talk, and he can explain what happened, but basically, as they gathered more information, they realized that there was going to have to be the fabrication of some parts rather than some standard parts, and the price increased substantially. There was an additional $60-some thousand for the job. So since the board approved the job, I cannot not do the job, and I can't approve the additional costs for the job. That has to be ultimately up to the board. So what I'm going to do is ask the representative for the company Bleachers and Seats to speak and explain kind of what happened. And then the board can have a couple of options. One would be to cancel the project. Another motion could be to continue with the project at the increased cost, and I believe that's the two options that are available at this time. But I can't make that decision myself because the board has voted on this project previously. So the board's the only one that can make those changes. I'll let you introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, come on up here to the microphone and welcome. Thank you for coming.
I'm Doug Bailey. I'm with Bleachers and Seats. We provide services throughout the area, throughout 4 states, in fact. And I represent Hussey, and that is the brand of bleachers you currently have in that facility. I'm open to questions. I can kind of give you a background of what has happened in the whole scheme of things. You basically have a set of bleachers in that gymnasium. They're approaching 50 years old. They're obsolete. They're out of code. And the goal to begin with was to have handrails and steps put in, which would, it's a step towards meeting code. They're still not going to be up to code. But in that process, if you were to look at your bleachers just walking in, which is what happened, we took pictures and so forth, you would think it was an M2400 series, which means nothing to you, but it's a model of bleacher. You actually have an M2000, which it's like putting a kit car together. It's almost like they used a frame and an engine of one car and then put a Ferrari body on it. So that that's what created the confusion. So once Hussey, the manufacturer, got in and dug out the original blueprints of the bleacher, they found that they had been altered. It's kind of like the time when M2000 was going to be done away with, and the 2400 came into being. The process of getting these handrails and the steps installed is going to take, again, everything's obsolete on it, so it's going to take custom everything. And that was not foreseen when they first looked at the bleacher from that, before they saw the true blueprints of it. And that's where the variance is coming into play. You're basically going to have yokes created, handmade. The process of taking the old and installing the new, widening the aisles, the time, that's the big thing. There's a huge time variance in doing this.
How many seats are we losing by doing this?
I don't know what you're losing. So every aisle, currently your aisles are 3 feet wide, I believe. They have to go out, they have to all be expanded, so you're gonna lose probably a seat or two on every row, on every aisle, in doing that. I was talking to Kelvin a little bit earlier. Your seat count, you have one of the largest sets of bleachers in the state.
Really?
Yeah, and there's there's a 30 tier that also exists out there, but you have 25 tiers on both sides. You guys have huge, old bleachers.
Thank you.
Well, as you can tell by the bid goes to 610 Madison Street. I think that was our old high school's address, probably somehow.
Yeah, I have a copy of the blueprints in there, and they're 75, 76.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, what we need to, we have two options here. To either reject or not reject, but to
rescind.
Basically, you can choose to cancel the project, in which case the ESSER money that's been allocated, we would have to reallocate it to something else, and we have been talking about that. You can also elect to allocate the additional funds to complete the job as described. And we have had new ESSER funds come in. That's what's allowing us to do the cost HVAC replacement bid that is next and some other projects. So I'm going to say that is there ESSER funds sufficient to do this job in its entirety? The answer to that is yes. Could we, if this job is canceled, could we find another use for those ESSER funds? Such as some technology needs and some other things? The answer to that is also yes. Now, all this is relatively recent, so we do have some things, other things that would take the place of this. We have questions into the state about whether, for example, we could buy chairs to put in every school. Like right now, if you went to the awards day, all those chairs that the kids were sitting on were rental chairs. So what we would do is we would see if ESSER would be allowed us to buy chairs at every school and do that kind of thing. We might look at interactive technology for PE classes and that kind of thing. But again, we can make either of those options work. It's just whichever direction the board decides to go. But we believe that we can make it work if the board chooses to add the money and complete the project. We believe that we can make adjustments and spend the money in other ways if the board discontinues the project. So either one of those is an option.
To be clear, how the amount that was added was
$63,838.
$63,000.
So you started with about 93, I believe. Is that right?
Okay, the 93 included the half mid steps as well.
Right.
So it actually started out at 43,000 for the handrails, almost 44,000. So this is going to, it's well over double.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but basically the price for the total project, both mid steps and rails, it would go from 93 and change up to 157 or so.
Two questions. I know at some point you told us what new bleachers would cost for the
Yes, sir.
gymnasium.
Now,
Or a rough estimate.
since you asked, about 4 years ago, when we started looking at the motors and started to work with those, I talked to a bleacher company. It was a different bleacher company than Mr. Bailey's with, and they gave me a price at that time, around a little over $200,000 per bank. So it's going to be about $415,000. Mr. Bailey did bring in what the prices are now for Hussey bleachers, and that was around $731,000 for the 2 banks.
Okay, another question is, you made a statement, you'll still be out of code.
Correct.
What happens if someone gets injured on those and you're out of code?
We
Well-
had that in that same 4 year ago discussion.
Right. Right now
we're-
with us us grandfathered in those bleachers as they stand unaltered and that kind of thing, they're grandfathered in, so there is no increased liability as a result of that.
So you can change them however you want to and they're covered.
The process is, once you start making changes, you're supposed to bring them completely up to code.
Right.
So you either leave them alone or you get legit.
You're never out of the liability completely.
But
Do you have a recommendation, Dr. Lawson, for this?
For this one, I'll just say that we can make both those options work. It's
Okay.
just difficult for me to say whether I recommend one or the other.
The way I look at this, if someone falls, even though we're grandfathered in, and we are sitting here debating whether we're going to get it up to code or not, then we're going to be liable either way, because if we've got the means of making that safe for everybody, then that could be used against us if somebody falls now. I mean, we've got to do something over there.
I understand we're grandfathered in. How long is Grandpa going to live? How long before your grandfathering ends? And somebody says you've got to change it.
That would be,
Opportunist.
that's not an answerable question, because to my knowledge, there is no law that says, hey, you're grandfathered in for a finite amount of time. To my understanding is it's grandfathered in until there is a change that is made. And so, and that's where we are.
I will say that the last time when we brought this all up, or it started coming up, we had to make changes on the outside rails because of it has to be 4 inches. You can't put your fist through the outside rails. So we had those changed. We had the motors changed because they would not retract and come back out. And we spent about $34,634. And that was in April the 12th of 21. So
again, we can make either one of those options
make either
work.
work.
It's whatever, whoever wants to make a motion, whether to continue with the project at the increased cost or cancel the project, that will be at the discretion of the board, but we can make both of those work.
Okay, go ahead.
One more question. So, am I understanding that these cannot be brought up to code? They can be made better? So it's either be made better but still not up to code, or brand new ones?
So to get them completely up to code,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to do the steps, widen the aisles, put in handrails. You've already replaced your end rails 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Correct.
So you should be close. We didn't inspect them. I couldn't tell you where it's at that point. But you've hit all the major things if you're taking care of that.
Do you think, I know you don't know for sure, but do you think it would just take a little bit more to bring them all the way to code?
Like I said, you're pretty close. I think the bigger concern beyond code's a huge thing. Liability is a huge thing. But these are approaching 50 years old. Their life cycle.
Repairing them in the future.
You're just going to keep putting money into them to keep them going.
Okay. That answered my question. Thank you.
I think it sounds like we're hearing that we may not be able to make a wise decision. But the motion can be for anything. If we want to cancel the project and look at it, send it back to,
I think that's a good idea before we
spend that money.
To spend that money and then also decide to take them out and replace them because they've served really, 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 really well for 50 years.
It's a huge life cycle. That's great for bleachers.
So there's a lot to discuss on that.
Yeah, so if what I'm hearing is we may want to entertain a motion to cancel and not accept this at this time. Is that correct? Well, let's hear a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're going to just cancel this and maybe look at the project a little more.
Well, can we add that to the motion that, because I don't want this to die.
Well,
We've got to do something over there. And
I was gonna
we've
say
got all
to
this
add it.
money that everybody says we've got. We've got to do something. And I think we need to talk about it.
Till the
What?
next meeting, but in the next work session, have a discussion about it.
Right.
Well, however long
it takes to get the information.
Just please understand that when we're talking about ESSER dollars, we have a time limit that we have to get this
Right.
resolved. So pretty much if we put this off to the next meeting, there's not enough time, and then the board decides to move forward with it, say in June, there's probably not enough time to get it geared up and going and get the work done, if the board decided to move forward with it at that point. It's just, that's
Something we have to
just where we are.
I mean, that makes me want to go ahead and do it, but I also hate to spend this much money and it not be up to code.
Well, it's not like we're going to lose the money. We will find other things to utilize the money for. Now, we may be short if we want to do this, then we won't have the money for this project.
Well, we need some plans in the future to do that, because, in the future, it's going to have to be done, because like you said, the bleachers are old. We can't just wash it under the table and.
Yes, ma'am. That's why we mentioned several years ago, we brought up the potential for replacement, but there seemed to be a strong reaction that was not the desired path. But that is something that we mentioned about 3 or 4 years ago was potential replacement.
Yeah, the money was the issue at that point. We couldn't do it.
I don't remember that part of the discussion. No, ma'am.
Oh, really?
We discussed this year before you came on. We've been talking about bleachers for a long time here. Okay, so
Again,
right now,
what is the estimated cost of replacing the bleachers?
Right now,
700 and,
731,000 is what he just gave to me. Now, that's just what he gave for a price for Hussey, and there are other companies as well. It would go into a bidding situation, and that's what we'd look at.
Can we just do that then instead of this?
well, we don't have the ESSER money.
Well,
do we?
we can, that can be a discussion. You're going to be looking at a budget amendment here. I think it's item number 14. You'll be looking at a budget amendment that's going to put money into capital projects. If that's something that the board decided to use that money for instead of lighting or doors or that kind of thing, then that's an option.
And I know there'll be a major drop in capacity. Do you have an idea if we were to go with a new set?
The capacity is actually on the sheet that
Is
I
it?
gave you.
I don't think we know what the capacity of what we currently have.
Do you know it right off? I've got it somewhere. It's just not with
My
me.
recollection is 2,900 and something. I couldn't swear to it, but
That's a lot for 2 sets of bleachers. So there is a lot of material if we're going to get into that.
Okay, the gross seating that was quoted here was 1,525 per side.
So 3,000.
And the net seating was 1,189.
You're gonna go by net.
Okay, so what's 1,189 times 2? So you're looking at 2,300.
A little under 2,400, yeah.
2388.
So we're cutting our
About 500 if you do that.
capacity down.
No matter what you do, you're gonna lose seats because of aisle code.
You either don't do nothing or you're going to lose about 500.
You have aisle code, also you have the handicap, ADA, and so forth as well. It's gonna take-
Those will be recoverable. You'll
Okay.
always have that.
Gotcha.
Dr. Nestor, if I may, Dr. Lawson, not to confuse this whole issue, but I know one of our teachers sent an email to the board regarding doors in the high school. Having doors, I guess, that we need in the high school. Do we have an estimated cost of that? And would that be an ESSER
No,
project?
sir, there's no way we could get that particular project into ESSER in a timely fashion, and I'm not sure that it would even be accepted, but that would be a completely separate discussion.
Because I'm concerned about that question that
Did
was
you say-
raised by the teacher.
731 on a new set?
Yes.
When you break that
That's
down
just
to
a
50,
ballpark.
50 years, that's $14,000 a year, so they've well served their purpose.
Well, is there any way that this 100,000 of ESSER funds could go into the increase in teachers' salaries and we'd have that money left to use toward the bleachers?
No, ma'am, we can't use ESSER funds for increasing
salaries.
salaries. No, there was a one-time allowable use for an extra pay, like a bonus structure in ESSER 1, and that's what we did the first year, but that has not been allowed since then.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
There's generations of names carved in those bleachers out there. What about the principal? Can we ask him his opinion?
Absolutely.
In the hot seat.
Do you think he has an opinion? Okay.
Well, I think if we start talking about any ball field, gym, we did some changes to our baseball and softball field bleachers here in the past year or so. And there are people that are very nostalgic about things like that, and, they don't want those things to change. But in the end, when you deal with code issues, you do your best to try to meet code. In our softball field situation here recently, we lost a little bit of seating. We've got very nice bleachers, though. In this situation, it's very clear that we would lose seating in our gymnasium. Honestly, I would hate for us to lose seating in our gym. But one thing that I keep noting is that we spend money on our bleachers and then we continue to have issues with our bleachers. And that's a concern of mine. Personally, I like our bleachers.
Do you spend money each year?
I wouldn't say every year,
to
but
repair them?
it was mentioned that we spent a sizable amount on motors back 3 or 4 years ago. The motors are working. We've had an issue here or there, but they're working. But we run into issues with because there's not a lot of play between the wall and the rails, which do meet code. We've got those side rails now, which are part of meeting code. There's just not a lot of room in between the wall and those spaces, and so it's very easy for those to run against the wall with the mats, and then you're stuck for a few days with bleachers halfway out and things like that. So that causes problems for us as well. Honestly, I don't think it's an easy decision necessarily, but I can't help but note that we keep spending money on the bleachers. 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't want new bleachers, but we do continue to spend money on them. So, I feel a little differently now.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we also, that's a great point, but then again, also know that even some of our new bleachers, Raider Academy and other places, same thing. You always got something with anything mechanical. New or not new, it's just,
All right.
this is a big deal.
It's a big deal, and so that's why right now our motion is to stop and take a look.
Mr. Parsley, if I may, ask this question, might be a dumb question, but the motors that we put in there 4 years ago at a cost of $20,000, I'm assuming, I'm going to ask the question, with those motors, can they be transferred over to, I assume, to the new bleachers?
No.
They cannot?
Say no.
I think we have a bleacher expert
It
back
was
here. so-
years before that. It was years before that we had that problem 3 or 4 years ago. It was several years before that we had to put motors on, I believe. I believe I remember that.
One side,
One side.
one bank was repaired 2 or 3 years before we started up here. Then after we got started, there was the next year, the other side went out. So, and the thing is, they didn't make the motors when we replaced them. They had to retrofit what they had to make them work, and that's what we were using, and we're still having problems. They are working, but those bleachers are old and heavy. There's a lot of wood there, and it's just a lot of weight. And I'm assuming the newer ones are going to be a whole lot lighter because you're talking about plastic compared to wood. I like these that we have as far as the durability on the outside, but there's just a lot of weight, and the fatigue underneath is going to happen as well with all the metal. It's a skeleton underneath, and that stuff's going to start fatiguing.
Well, to speed this up, what's your recommendation?
I'm not going there either.
Because we went the extreme every which way, and this was kind of just, I don't think nobody expected this to get.
My recommendation, I thought 3 years ago or 4, whenever we were looking at it, that it was probably better for us to change them out. At that time, we put a lot of money in them since then as well. So it's really, I know that there's the public really likes the ones we have. There was a big outcry when we started looking at changing out the bleachers. Blew me away. I didn't realize that was going to happen, and here we are. And we're still going to be putting money into.
We're
the
liable to
bleachers.
walk outside today and get caught if they're watching on YouTube.
Well, the public's been telling me they want bleachers because I go to a lot of those ball games, and that's one of the biggest concerns is that a lot of spectators can't get above the second row. So,
And new ones would have handrails, would have the wider aisles, would have all those at the get-go.
So the total package, including handrails, would be the estimated 730.
That's a complete replacement to new bleachers on both sides.
Now, I'm not sure if that included everything. I don't know if they included the removal.
That's just a ballpark.
There's some things that we haven't talked about. He just brought this number in, so I haven't looked at those other things, but.
Yeah, I don't even think it's been looked around through the budget.
Demo,
I don't think
so.
Demo, when you're talking about demo
This
of those
is-
top bleachers, you're talking about some time spent in danger.
Yeah.
To safety things to get those bleachers out. So there's different things. So I can't tell you 731 is it.
All right, does the board have a?
Do we have a motion on the floor
I
that's
don't
been
think we've
lingering
even
for
put
a
a
while?
motion in our second at this point.
I believe there was some talk, and you said, okay, am I hearing a motion to do this? But then there was never a
It
formal
was never
motion made by
officially
anybody,
made.
and there was no official
Yeah, so
second.
right now, I do not think we have a motion of any type on this. So we've kind of allowed it to be discussed, and
Can I make a motion to accept bids for new bleachers?
Not at this time. We have to decide, what we have to do at this time is decide what to do with the present plan. So we either have to, with this particular project, we either have to not do the project, the board has to cancel the project, or the board has to approve the additional ESSER funds to be used to move forward with this project. That's what we have to do right now.
Correct. And I believe there's already a motion.
Well, there was some discussion.
There was discussion, but a
technically
motion wasn't
nobody ever
formally
came
made.
and Said I move to.
I thought I had Brent Parsley and Jennifer Peacock Hodge as second on a motion.
To cancel it, yeah. You did.
There was a motion and a second.
Okay, there was a
To
lot of
cancel
discussion.
All right.
Mr. Parsley, did you move?
To
did
cancel
you move
it.
to cancel the job?
Mhm, she's
And a
second.
Okay.
My apologies,
So
Mr.
we do-
Chair. I was incorrect.
all right. So right now, to reiterate, we have motion on the floor to cancel the project.
I
the
think I said to
handrail bid.
cancel it and move it to a work session or to whatever we need to do to discuss this.
And
Have a
you can
special
actually go
called
back to
meeting.
Capital projects meeting, I mean, to the committee for us to discuss it, and we'll go from there with a recommendation to the board.
Okay. So
That's appropriate.
I'll accept that to my motion then.
motion to
Motion to
cancel it and
cancel
send
this,
it to
send it to Capital Improvement Committee
Capital
projects,
Okay.
and you report back to the board.
Ms. Jennifer, you're okay with that too?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so we do have a motion and a second to cancel this. We'll vote on it. Ms. Jones? Ms. Rose?
Aye.
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 The chair votes aye. That passes 9-0. Okay. Costs HVAC replacement bid. Mr. Shores or Dr. Lawson?
I just referenced this a moment ago. The cost HVAC, the HVAC system at costs and CCVA, it is the least old unit in the district. I can't call it the newest because that doesn't describe it properly. It is the least old one, and so what happened was when ESSER money started, we were basic allocating it, and we did not have enough to replace that when we replaced Hickerson's HVAC unit. But with the recent increase in ESSER allocations that Coffee County Schools got, that became a realistic option, and I believe this is the last HVAC unit that would need to be replaced in the district. And so it is under a cooperative purchasing agreement, and you'll see that. But we can use ESSER for this now that we have that increased allocation, and all of our HVAC systems in all schools will be updated at that point.
And there needs to be one correction on the front page. I basically pulled the same form or document that I used when we brought it up the last time, and we would take off the capital outlay need to be used for the funding. It would be just ESSER 3.0.
So yes, when you see funding on the quote, it would be entirely ESSER 3.0, no capital outlay.
Okay. So this comes with your recommendation to accept this bid?
It does.
Okay.
And the bid amount?
$118,832.
For the director's recommendation to accept the costs HVAC replacement bid, it will be funded by ESSER. I'd like to open the floor for a motion as such.
So moved.
Ms. Rose.
Second.
Second, Mr. Crabtree. Any questions?
I would like to also say that this is 3 units, and they are rooftop units as well.
And they're deficient, they're bad, we can't use them.
Well, they're getting us by right now, yes.
Are they the units that were on the building when it was purchased?
But are the reason we're purchasing because we have the money to do it, or are they really needing to be replaced at this point?
They need to be replaced.
Okay, so they're unusable, you
No,
might
they
say.
are usable.
We are limping
Because I'm just
along
looking
with
at
them.
monies for the bleachers.
They were in the best shape of these units were in the best shape of the old units. Doesn't mean they were in good shape. It just means they were the best shape. And so when we ran out of funds with the first allotment, they were the first thing to roll off. But with the new allotment of ESSER funds, we can do that.
Any more questions about this?
What is the new allotment of ESSER fund amount that we have?
I think it's 170.
174,000.
174,000.
Are these 5 or 10 tons? I see 3 10s in the description, then in the product data, call them 5 tons.
Description's 310 tons, so.
Item A1, it's.
I let
calling
Train
5
go up there
tons.
to look at the sizes we need.
Yeah. Well, I just didn't know which one we were.
I see what you're saying. It says 5
between
ton.
the two.
I see both what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. And I don't have a better answer for you.
Okay. Any more concerns, questions then? We're voting on the cost replacement, not cost replacement, the HVAC replacement. Miss Rose?
Aye.
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 The chair votes aye. That passes 9-0. Action item number 7, school fees 2024-2025. Dr. Lawson?
Yes, each year the board is required to approve fees for classrooms and for schools and that kind of thing. This is just that it is time to, for the board to officially approve that fee structure this year for the 24-25 school year. Ms. Melson, I believe there was one change. Was there one change somewhere? Or?
I think it's on the next item.
Oh, okay. Okay, no, I'm sorry. I don't remember, I did not notice a difference between the fees for this current school year and the fees for next school year. I just wasn't sure. I didn't notice one, but I thought somebody had said there was. But these are pretty standard fees that are charged at each school. You'll see that there are no fees collected at the elementary schools, but these are fees that are traditionally covered with classes. For classes, and then anytime a student cannot pay these fees, they're covered by the fee waiver funds, which are discussed in the next item.
Okay.
But this is the same approval that happens each year.
And this goes with your recommendation to accept these fees.
It does.
Okay, you've heard the director's recommendation to accept the school fees that's presented for 2024-25. I'd like to open the floor for a motion to accept these fees.
So moved.
Second.
Rose, Mr. Crabtree. Questions on the fees? Hearing none, Mr. Crabtree.
Aye.
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 Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes 9-0. Moving to action item number 8, transfer of unused fee waiver. Dr. Lawson.
Okay, this is also an item that comes up usually in May of each year, to where the board has to decide what to do with the unused fee waiver funds. You'll see you have an attachment, a document that's included that does show what is at each school. Different schools have used different amounts. You will notice that there is a large amount left at Coffee County High School. That is usually that fund is depleted. As you'll see, there's a small note on there that says the remaining funds will be used towards free and reduced cap and gown packages, graduation, and then divided between teachers. So what happens is the high school, the bulk of that, the vast majority of that is used to provide cap, gowns, and other graduation costs for those students who cannot afford it. And then what, not usually a whole lot left over, it goes to the different departments, because on the fees that you just passed, different departments charge different fees. And so what happens is the remaining money gets distributed between those groups. But I'll be glad to answer or have principals answer any questions you might have when we get into the discussion.
It comes for your recommendation to accept the transfer of the unused fee waivers.
It does, and I'll remind board members, we've talked about this before, there are restricted reasons that you can use fee waiver. You can't do things like buy yearbooks. You can use it for fees. There are a few other things it can be used for. What this does is this simply takes it from fee waiver funds and puts it directly into the the school's funds, so they can continue to use it going forward. So basically, for example, $274 at East Coffee, that goes over into the school funds. And so if they wanted to use it at the beginning of next year for fees on a field trip or something, they still could. They just have that access. But we have to basically zero this account out, and so we transfer it over into the school accounts, and the school maintains control.
Open the floor for a motion to transfer of the unused fee waiver as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Jennifer.
Second.
And Mr. Cordell. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe Deerfield and North Coffee Middle School and Raider Academy, they certainly need it, and I wonder why New Union does not need it. I mean, we had $1,700, and there's $1,423 left. I mean,
Actually, with what is coming up, there's about $8,000
Basically, we had to run this report as it stood at that time, but as you know, there are multiple field trips and all that kind of stuff here at the end of the year. So we have to run this report as it stands. With New Union having multiple field trips still left, those funds will be reduced, but I was not sure what the amount was. So what was that?
We'll have $801.
Okay. And so that's where New
It
Union
seems like that everybody should have zero, and I understand the high school, but that's what that money's for, to be used, and there's ways of using it with those kids.
Any more questions? If not, we're going to vote to accept the transfer of unused fee waiver, action item number 8. Mr. Cordell, you're first.
Aye.
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 Hi.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, passes 9-0. Moving on to action item number 9, the YouTube committee meetings, work sessions, retreats. You want to turn this, Mr. Ballard
I'm gonna have to
requested
yield
this to
Mr.
be
Ballard
on
on
there.
this one. This is his item.
Yes, the county videos and presents on YouTube all their committee meetings. And given that we've had some issues with, couldn't remember what people said and things like that, I think it might be advisable to, and I would propose that we put on YouTube and video all our committee meetings and work sessions. It would require Mr. Damewood to use his tech wizardry to set us up with microphones, but the county seems to do just fine. And I find the county committee meetings, I do watch those from time to time, and you do pick up some things there, and I go back and watch some of these meetings too, as strange as that sounds, just to see what was said. So I think it's probably, good policy to get those all on the record.
So are you making a motion for us to start?
Yes, I would move that we video all meetings that are held here in this, committee meetings, work sessions, and retreats that are held here in this room.
So we've had a motion.
I'll second.
A second by Mr. Gilly. Questions now?
Could we ask Mr. Damewood how this would affect?
Yeah, how it would
what he
affect
would
him?
need to do, and
As you are sitting, that's how it would affect.
there would be no sitting around a table. It would have to be up here.
Not, because that's a whole different infrastructure, and we have, the camera would not make it to that level. And I looked into wireless microphones, but the problem is, we would have to get very expensive wireless microphones, because the ones that we have, and they're working fine, they only make like 8 channels total, and their frequencies start overlapping. That's why you have to go to the big dollar, high dollar ones that can have tunable, and they just cost a lot more.
So a table here in front of this with chairs around it would probably not, the sound would not pick up correctly,
Well,
correct?
Everything with video, and nobody can hear me, so let me get up. Video could be very poor, but if the sound's bad, you can't watch it.
Defeated the purpose.
The sound is 100% more important than the quality of the video. And if you watch any old movie, if the sound's terrible, you'd stop watching. So that's just where the question would be. And see, these are all hardwired. So, getting cables and running all that stuff, that would be a problem. It can be done, it just would be a lot more than what we paid for these 4 microphones here.
But it can easily be done. It's just that the board would be electing, probably at least until we figure out another option. This would be the seating arrangement in work sessions, committee meetings, all that kind of stuff.
Couldn't you move the tables up closer to this and transfer them over?
Well, the cables are very, very short. I don't think the cables have much play in them.
So we can't have longer cables?
Well, they're hardwired all the way underneath the wood and everything. We'd have to probably dig up the floor or something to pull cables through there. They all run. That's why there's a platform here. One reason why
So
you're
you
raised up.
can't put extensions on them?
Possibly.
With the
Possibly
microphone,
do that.
I think a couple of times when people come in virtually, when we was doing work sessions and things of that nature, in the middle of the tables there, we had that microphone and speaker.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
But that's,
that one.
We can try it. I just cannot guarantee the quality of the sound until we try it. I have no way of knowing how good that's going to be. unless you're pretty tight, you know, like, I don't know what's the biggest committee meeting, but, you know, when you start adding this and you start doing that whole spread, it'd get kind of boomy in places.
So,
We really don't
But it
need
could
that
be
whole
done.
spread, because, you know, everybody's spread out, like, you could just had a big long, you know, like those three.
I mean,
Most
like
committee meetings aren't any bigger than
extensions,
that.
that's a good idea for cable extensions, other than the fact that you got cables running all before. You just have to be
yes.
careful not to trip over. But
This-
you can do that.
this can be done.
Yep.
So you would have to be at someone from you or someone from your department would have to be here for those meetings?
Yep.
Each of these. Any more questions? But temporarily, if we did start it, we would probably definitely have to get here till we figure out if there's another option.
Well, I mean, I could just look for extension cables and make sure, one thing, when you start adding length to cables, you sometimes get some grounding feedback.
Is there an easier way for you just to record the meeting and then put it on the website?
Good question.
That would actually probably be a worse situation.
Be a what?
That would probably be a worse situation because we're still using the same equipment if we were gonna record it. So that's not, it doesn't matter if it's live or recorded, that doesn't really change the equation at all.
And the thing is, if the board decided to move forward with this, I guess we would like it to be defined on when would that start. If you recall last spring, when it was initially approved for board meetings to be televised, put on YouTube, you gave a start date, I think, of
We started July, whatever the July meeting was.
in the new fiscal year.
And not
So
try to do it the June meeting.
that would give more time for technology to work out options, so to speak. So it would simplify things if that motion was made, that the language be added to not
Put a
start
date,
until
a start
July.
date.
Sure, that would work.
Okay.
What kind of microphones does the county use in the committee meetings?
I have no
They're
idea.
wireless, okay.
I don't think they're wireless. I think they're all hardwired. I don't think that, how many commissioners are there?
Well, I mean, at the committee meetings, because you got wireless mic, I believe they're wireless mics
Well,
around
they
the
could be in the
table.
committee meeting. I've never been to one, so I don't know.
Yeah,
But, you know, for the whole group, I'm sure they're wired because that's 28 channels.
right,
20
yeah,
channels.
yeah.
Well, like I said, it could be done. It's just they're significantly more expensive than these 4 sets were.
Yeah, I was just
Like
curious.
these 4 were only like $350, and they were a good deal for what they do. But because I think things sound pretty good, but you start getting into 8, 9, 10 channels, it knocks you up to a different level.
Would you want to put a begin date on your motion, Mr. Ballard?
Well, this is, so,
Do it the fiscal year?
Yeah.
It's your motion.
yeah, so that would be July,
Okay.
I'll take it.
Effective July 1.
I'll take it.
Okay.
target July meeting.
All right. You good, Miss Rose? You need anything? Want to say anything?
No, I'm just need a drink of water.
Go right ahead.
When it says on here retreats, what if it's off-site? I mean, I don't want to pass something that we've got to,
Mr. Ballard
Follow
made the
through
motion
with.
to include in this room.
okay, I'm
So
sorry.
he did say in this room in the original motion.
Okay.
Okay. We are going to vote on action item number 9. Mr. Gilly, you have the first vote.
Aye.
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 Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes 9-0. Thank you, Mr. Damewood. Action item number 10, general budget, 7% raise. Dr. Lawson?
As I tried to explain in an email I sent to the board last week, since the spring retreat, we have received revised estimated and numbers for our revenue that included approximately $200,000 additional dollars in our property tax estimate, approximately $150,000 additional dollars through the state funding formula, and that's $350,000 additional dollars in revenue. So when I made my recommendation back at the spring retreat, I recommended a 6% raise because I thought the 5% did not push things nearly enough. An argument could be made that the 7% might have pushed things a bit too much. As I explained in my email, I'm somewhat of a fiscal conservative, so I didn't want to push it too much, and that's why I recommended the 6% raise. However, it takes approximately $350,000 to provide a 1% raise for our employees. And so that is what these new revenue estimates, these increased revenue estimates, is enough to provide a 1%, one additional percent on the 6% that was already passed. If you go down to the last page on the budget that you see, the digital budget that you see, you will see that the 6%, as it stands now and has already been approved by the board and by the Budget and Finance Committee, shows a hit of $972,745. With these new revenue estimates in the budget and the 7% raise, it comes out to $975,593. So basically, it is less than $3,000 difference. So with it being the same, essentially the same hit to fund balance as what the board approved in April, I thought it behooved us to recommend that we take into account those new revenue estimates and increase that proposed raise from 6% to 7%. It is still essentially the same hit to fund balance. The only difference is it would have to go back to Budget and Finance if the 7% passed this body. It would have to go back to Budget and Finance, and then it would be at the same stage as the 6% currently is. So if there is a motion and a second and it's approved, we will take it through the full county process. If there's not a motion or a second, or it doesn't get approved, then we will continue the process with the 6% as it stands. So that is the two options. Ms. Melson, have I missed any details? Okay.
It comes to your recommendation to approve the 7% raise.
I would say that this board adopt the budget with the increased revenue estimates that we have and the 7% raise.
You've heard the director's recommendation to accept the 7% raise to the general budget. I'd like to open the floor for a motion.
So moved.
Is that it, Mr. Cordell?
I'll second.
Okay.
Mr. Parsley got it. So that's about one side of bleachers. Decisions that we have to make.
Does that, remembering back from the work session, when we went with the 6%, the next 2 years, I believe we was looking at a 4 and a 3,
That's correct.
and going with this 7, we'll be at a 3 and a 3.
That is correct. To get to the state, and what Mr. Gillies referring to is to get the starting salary, the bachelor's zero line, up to the required minimum $50,000 that is coming here in just a couple of years.
Okay, I have a couple questions. I was trying to figure out, you said property taxes increased so that we're getting more money through property taxes?
I'm going to yield to Ms. Melson.
Yes, so the new estimate I got, so we do our budget, we have to have our budget presented to the county by May 1st. So at that point in time, when we presented the budget in the spring retreat, I used what our current year budget amount was proposed to be in the 24-25 budget. So when Ms. Edinger from the county sent over the new estimate for the 24-25 school year, it did increase $250,000. Well, close to that.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the budget, and in 23, the current property taxes that was actually audited was $9,346,000. 25, it's showing the budget is $9,297,000. Where is the money?
The increase from, if you look at the first budget, yes, so we did go down in this school year, but if you look at the 25 budget line, there's two lines for budget, the budget for 25.
The 9,489?
There's the 6% budget, the 9,297,000, and then the 7% budget line, there's 9,489,426. So that is the new number that I got from Miss Edinger.
9,489.
9,489,000.
I mean, 9 million.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
ma'am.
So that's not a lot from 23, so can we keep this up? 23 was 9,346,000, and it's 9,489 over a period of 2 years.
Miss Ettinger was pretty certain that this number was going to hit at this amount.
But in the next year, the same.
She will have to recalculate that. She provides those numbers to me each year, so
Okay.
she would have to calculate that and give it to me.
We've seen a time that property taxes go down.
Well, if you look at 23 to 24, but we're actually probably going to come in over what we've estimated for this school year.
Okay, and looking at sales taxes for the county, 6,556,000 in 23, and it's just 6,817,000 now. It seems like it's all in a level, playing field. So
Well, sales tax is a pure estimate based on a 3-year trend. So we don't get sales tax numbers from the county. That's just an estimate based on what we've done the last 3 years.
right,
And we will be, from my estimates from this school year, we will be coming in over the 6.3 million. And if you'll, later in the budget amendment, I think that's one of the lines
what
that
I'm
we're.
looking at.
In the budget amendment, there'll be additional revenue from that line brought into the budget to be able to use on other things. But yes, we will be hitting the 6.3, and it will be, my estimate's 6.6. And so we looked at that number versus what we've brought in the last 3 years, and that's why the budget is 6.8. We are seeing an increase in sales tax each year.
So we're required in 2027 to hit $50,000 in base teacher salaries. So however we apportion it, we're going to have to make a percentage jump every year to get there. If I remember from
Yes,
our
as
work session
I tried to
correctly.
explain at the spring retreat, that would be our preferred option, is the percentages go straight across the board. But if you recall, there might come a time that my successor might be faced with, hey, there's not enough money to do a straight percentage, so you do a flat increase to all the sales, which means that the less experienced teachers get a slightly higher percentage than the more experienced teachers and that kind of thing. But basically, the more difference we can make at this point, the less difference my successor has to make in the future.
I would like another explanation on the TISA funding, because it is going to go down in the future.
So I get monthly estimates from, for
Mr.
the next
Kennedy
school
is
year.
here? He's not here, is he? Okay.
I get, the base went up from 6,860 to 7,075 per child. And I get monthly, Keith sends me monthly estimates. Also, I get it from the Department of Finance. And we're getting estimates right now for the 24-25 school year based on what we're doing this school year.
But isn't it, what year was it when the ratio changes, where the county has to take over more of the funding than the state?
The
ratio-
percentage the county has to meet, is that what you're,
Yes.
so yeah, I think that's the 25-26 school year.
25-26 school year. The
But it
ratio-
doesn't impact our state funding. It'll impact the local funding, but they already provide the necessary percentage at this point.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to impact local funding then, for sure.
Yeah, and so they're all already meeting what they're supposed to. Even if you look ahead at 25 and 26 right now, they're already meeting what they're supposed to meet.
I mean, not just meeting what they're supposed to meet doesn't mean that we can have excess funding.
They're meeting that and more. They're not, I have to input all the information into the state, and the county is meeting and exceeding what they're supposed to at this moment.
But that's the minimum. I mean, the state requires a minimum amount that they meet.
And they're already over that. The county's already
How
providing.
much? Do you know?
I don't know right offhand, but the last time I looked at it, it was a couple million over what the county was supposed to provide.
Any idea what the TISA funding is going to do in the way of increases to account? I'm assuming they're only calculating in the teachers, which I think we talked about in the work session, but there's going to be some increase in TISA to account for the raise in salaries too, right? So there's going to be a increase in the state amount to kind of cover some of this stuff anyway. Not all of it, I understand, but.
So that's where the local portion also helps to pick up what the TISA state funding does not. And so that's why the requirements are on the 25-26 school year. That's why the requirements are to be there. So when we get to that point, the local part is picking up what the state funding is not covering. Does that make sense? They're telling us it's in there. What we need is in there. And I have seen an increase in our funding formula for this coming up school year. It's right now this month it's been fluctuating, but right now what you see, there's about $150,000 increase from what we saw back when we did the March, and that's just Keith's team doing what they're supposed to do and coding people and us getting people in categories they're supposed to be in. So.
Action item number 10, the general budget should raise to a 7% raise. That is the motion with the second. It's on the floor right now.
7% raise with updated revenues.
With updated revenue. Okay, we're going to take a vote on that. Mr. Ballard, you're first.
Aye. Abstain.
Okay.
Aye.
I abstain.
Miss Rose.
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye, so that passes with 7 votes. Okay? All right. Action item number 11, nutrition budget, 7% raise with the new figures.
Basically, I'm going to say the same thing I said in the spring retreat. I would encourage the board to approve the same raises for the nutrition staff that the rest of the staff is given, and that would be to go with the 7% proposed budget.
Okay. Heard the director's recommendation. I'd like to open the floor for a motion.
I so move.
Okay, Mr. Cordell to accept the 7%.
Second.
Mr. Crabtree. Any questions on that versus the other one? Hearing none, Mr. Parsley?
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. That passes 9-0. Action item number 12, budget amendment 141, 2024-11. Dr. Lawson or Ms. Melson?
Ms. Nelson, you want to handle these? Or okay. She's
So-
gone over them with me, but she still knows more than I do.
The first budget amendment, you see number 11, this is the summer school funding, that additional revenue that we've received from the state for summer school. So this budget amendment will bring this money into our budget to be able to use for same we have used in past. So this is just additional revenue that we will be able to allot to summer school funding.
And this budget amendment comes with your recommendation, Dr. Lawson?
It does.
You heard the director's recommendation to accept a budget amendment 141, 2024-11 as presented. Open the floor
I'll
for
make a motion.
Mr. Parsley?
Second.
Mr. Crabtree? Okay.
One question, it can only go toward summer school
That's
programs,
correct.
correct?
And that's why you see, if you look at it, you see the cost centers
Yes.
on here, and that's where they tell us we can use it. Like that's how it's divided out.
Okay.
we're gonna vote on action item 12, the budget amendment, number 11. It's action item number 12, but budget amendment 11. Miss Jennifer. That's on her. Miss Jones. I'll come back. Miss Rose. Aye. Mr. Crabtree.
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. That passes 7-0. Action item number 13. Budget Amendment 141-2024-12. Ms. Melson?
So this is a state grant that we received earlier in the school year. This is just cleaning up the funds so we can spend them all. So we just moved some funds around, and this runs through our general school budget, so it has to be done through a budget amendment by you guys. But this is just to clean up everything for this grant to spend the money.
Okay. This budget amendment comes for your recommendation, Dr. Lawson.
It does.
I'd like to open the floor for a motion to accept a budget amendment 141-2024-12.
So moved.
Second.
Crabtree, Mr. Cordell. Questions on this budget amendment? Hearing none. Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
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 The chair votes aye. Do you wish to vote on this budget amendment?
Sure, aye.
Aye. And the chair votes aye. That passes 9-0. Budget Amendment 141-2024-13. Ms. Melson?
This is the budget amendment that was discussed during the spring retreat. No, was it the, yes, is that correct? This is additional, this is the couple improvements that we discussed with the money that we were going to roll into fund balance. We were talking about doing lots and track improvements. So this is the budget amendment that would use the additional revenue that we would be getting in, as well as some other lines within the budget that we would not need the funds for to use for the track improvements and the athletic lighting improvements around the athletic fields in the district. So this budget amendment does not affect fund balance. We're simply taking from additional revenue and other lines in the budget to be able to accomplish this. Otherwise, these funds will roll into fund balance.
Okay. This comes with your recommendation, this amendment, Dr. Lawson?
It does, and I just want to call your attention. If you notice, it has the ones and the two on the explanation. It talks about track improvements, athletic light improvements. Those are not binding. The board can vote to approve this budget amendment. It will go into capital outlay, and if the board decided to use that for other purposes in the future, a new vote would simply override those uses. It would go into capital outlay with that earmarked, but if the board in the future decided to use those funds for doors, if they decided to use those funds for bleachers or some other purpose, the board could vote to do so and not run afoul of anything there. So I just wanted to make sure that is clear, and it does come in my recommendation.
Okay. You've heard the director's recommendation to accept budget amendment 141-2024-13. I'd like to entertain a motion to accept that.
So moved.
Mr. Crabtree, do I hear a second on this motion?
Second.
Second, Mr. Parsley. Okay.
Okay, I would like you to explain this. So it's $1,400,000, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That we are amending or
Yes,
adding?
ma'am. We're taking $1 million from the very top. If you look at the top of the budget
Right.
amendment, that's where we're getting the funds from to use it in the two areas.
Money that we didn't use somewhere else, is
Well,
that
it's
correct?
additional revenue. There's three places of additional revenue, and then there's three places where we
Okay, where did the additional revenue come from?
sales tax, the additional. We had some gross TISA funding and current and property tax.
Okay, so for this year, we got $1,400,000.
not in total in revenue, but there is about about 570,000 in additional revenue that we're going to get in, and the a remaining amount is used is from the budget from where we're not going to use it. So like the guidance counselors, when we're paying those from out of ESSER, we can use 350,000 of that to pay to move down into capital outlay.
So we're really supplanting the ESSER funds.
Yes, ma'am. ESSER allows us to supplant.
And so basically, yes, the additional revenue, we budgeted conservatively on sales tax because we thought there was going to be a recession in the fall of '23, and that didn't happen. So sales tax came in much larger than we anticipated. Some of the others that we also went conservative with, property tax and that kind of thing, came in higher than we had budgeted. But yes, the teachers and the guidance counselors, we have positions that Ms. Melson built into the budget so that we would not hit a fiscal cliff this year. And so she built them into the budget even though they were funded by ESSER. And so that's why we're able to have such a smooth transition to next year when we don't have ESSER.
What are we going to do the next year when we don't have ESSER?
Well, ma'am, they're already built into the budget. So we'll do the same thing the next year that we're going to do this coming year. And so that is where we supplanted it, but we left it in the budget so that we did not end up what's called a fiscal cliff where we just drop off of it and not be able to afford it. Those positions are in the budget. They were in the budget a year early, allowing us to avoid any hiccups in that transition. So if there was going to be a problem, it'd be in this coming year, and we don't anticipate that. Ms. Melson did a good job of making sure to build all those positions in ahead of time, and that's why there's extra funds.
Okay. We're voting to approve Budget Amendment 141-2024-13. This time, action item number 14. Ms. Rose.
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Cordell?
Aye.
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 The chair votes aye. That passes 9-0. Budget Amendment 141-2024-14, number 15. Dr. Ms. Melson again.
So this is just to clean up a few lines on the budget. You saw something similar, I think, last month. I try to estimate every line where we're at in the budget to make sure, especially for salaried lines, we don't go over. So I've estimated, this is my final estimate of lines that need additional funds added to them to keep us from potentially having an audit issue. So this is just the movement of funds from one line to another. It does not affect fund balance. I'll take questions if you have them.
Okay, this comes with your recommendations, this budget amendment.
It does.
Heard the Dr. Lawson's recommendation to accept a budget amendment 141-2024-14. I'd like to open the floor for a motion to accept it.
So move.
Mr. Parsley?
Second.
Mr. Cordell? Questions on this amendment? Hearing none, Mr. Crabtree?
Aye.
Mr. Bauer?
Aye, sorry.
Aye.
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 Ms. Rose?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes 8-0. Nutrition Amendment 141-2024-1.
Ms. Cotton.
Okay. Ms. Cotton?
Yes. I have to increase the state retirement. I received some fresh fruit and vegetable grants last year, and I received one for every elementary school, which I had not planned for. And in that, you have to pay employees for actually cutting up the fruit and vegetables. We pay them a little extra for that. And since I didn't know all the schools were going to get it, my state retirement went over just a little bit. So I'm just adjusting that. I took some out of food service equipment, which I had some extra money, and put into state retirement.
This nutrition amendment comes with your recommendation, Dr. Lawson?
It does.
Okay, you've heard the director's recommendation to accept the nutrition amendment that's been provided, 141-20241. I'd like to open the floor for a motion. Mr. Cordell
Second it.
and Ms. Jones. Questions about this amendment? Hearing none, Mr. Cordell?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Also, that's 9-0. That passes. Budget update, Ms. Melson.
So this is a budget update through March. Through March, for revenues, we've received 81% of budget, which was compared to last year's 79.06. And then for expenditures, we've used 60.65% compared to last year of 63.37%. So budget is on track. There's not a whole lot of updates from last month. If you have specific questions about specific lines, I'll be glad to answer those.
This budget update comes with your recommendation, Dr. Lawson?
It does.
You've heard the director's recommendation to accept the budget update we've been presented. I'd like to open the floor for a motion.
So moved.
Ms. Rose, second. Anyone?
Second.
Ms. Jennifer? Questions about the budget update? Hearing none, we're going to approve it. Mr. Gilly?
Aye.
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 Ms. Rose? She voted aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That passes 9-0. Action item number 18, Mr. Ballard.
Yes.
This is the motion, or requesting a special call meeting, I believe.
Yes. About 3 weeks ago now, I guess, I was out of town and at a conference, and my phone blew up with text messages and emails and phone calls about the interview on Thunder Radio, and saying, well, you need to do something, and there's limited stuff I can do. So I said, here's what I can do: is I can recommend we have a special meeting to discuss this, and thinking about it, there's a number of options that we can lay out that are in the director's contract right now. But there's some other things we need to discuss too. Is not only that, but we also, since we have about 1.5 years left on Dr. Lawson's contract, we also need to get a committee together to start looking and laying the groundwork for a new director. And I understand from TSBA that's traditionally led by the chair, and we don't have to do it that way, but we really need to get it together and lay the groundwork for what we need. So there's the contract issue, there is that. And also, a few months ago, Ms. Rose led a meeting and did a great job putting together. We went through the contract, we went through the evaluation, and we really, it was a very productive meeting, and we need to follow on with that, and take that momentum, and get those things done too, because these are all things that kind of come together for the new director, and so those three things would be what would be on the agenda for a special called meeting. So my motion, I guess, is to have a special called meeting to discuss those three items.
And those three items again, or could you?
The director's contract, the disposition there. And I would say this is, for instance, in February, Ms. Rose proposed to do a buyout. If we did something like that, that would involve a contract. We're coming up on the window of the elections where we can't do contracts before and after the election. So we're kind of in a time crunch if we need to do that there too. So these are some things we need to get, and we may opt to do to say, let's maintain the status quo, but we should probably define what that is as well. So the director's contract, the putting together a committee to lay the groundwork to do the director search. Do we want to employ the services of TSBA on some level? So at the work session, Mr. Cordell handed out a pamphlet that had TSBA services there. Do we want to do that? Do we want to do it ourselves? There's some choices that need to be made, and in the coming year, it's going to go by fast. We need to lay the groundwork for that. So I think a special called meeting just to focus on those topics is what we need to kind of get things moved forward here.
Now, Dr. Nestor, I will say that as far as the committee formed to choose the next director, as Mr. Ballard mentioned, that is led by the chair. I will call the attention to the board that Dr. Nestor is not going to be chair for a lot longer. So if you form the committee before the termination of his time, you're going to have to redraw that committee within just a few months. So that's, I mean, obviously the board can elect to do what they want, but that I would caution on that particular committee formation at this time anyway.
Okay, we've had a motion. Do we hear of a second on the motion?
I'll second. But I'd like to amend, if you'd entertain. I don't know if I can second and amend.
Well, I guess give him your thoughts and see if he's interested. So you can comment on his motion.
I would like to more clarify this, since I was accused of it a couple of weeks ago. I'd like to more clarify it into, this is basically approving an agenda item and approving a special called meeting 60, at least 15 days from now to discuss these items, and then decide and act on those items then, correct? I don't guess
If you're just gonna have a work session, you have a work session. But if you're gonna have a special call meeting, you're bringing an action item.
And I know he's asking,
something
and
that
that's
we
what
need
I
to vote
second,
on.
and that's what I seconded for. And I just wanted it clarified, I guess. You can call it an amendment or clarification of the main motion. 15, at least 15 days from now.
Yeah, it has to be anything that has to do with his contract.
This
be
would
15
count
days.
as the notification to public, as the opinion in which I requested and got from the attorney, board attorney, recommended. I think that's where we're going with this.
So you basically wanted him to accept that we will vote on.
That this is noted as a vote to discuss and act on the director's contract in 15 days at least.
Okay.
He didn't have a date in there. I didn't know if he wanted it tomorrow night or.
Yeah, no, it would have to, if it has anything to do with his contract, we will have to give
15
proper
days.
notice.
Yeah. So if he's good with 15 days.
There is a motion on the floor, yes,
Okay, I want to make sure that, I'm sorry.
and a second, so.
I want to make sure that I understand the part about the next director on the list. I want to make sure I understand part one of Mr. Ballard's motion. Are we talking about having a meeting discussing the termination of Dr. Lawson's contract?
That would be the action. I mean, I would assume if you're gonna take action, that's what it would have to be. Either renew it or terminate it.
I'm kind of confused why we'd have to have a meeting to do that, because I made that motion back in February, and nobody seemed to be very interested in it. So, I'm not sure why now, but I will share one piece of information with you. If this board thinks that Charles Lawson can be dismissed with cause, get ready to open your checkbooks right now, because you can pay Chuck Cagle $100,000 to come in and try that for you and see if he can make that stand. And, you know, it won't. You throw a little more on top of that, you can buy out his contract. I just want to point that out, you know, before we start talking about getting a lawyer involved in doing something, because we had an opportunity to make that happen back in February, and it didn't. So, you know, if there's a meeting, yeah, I'll come to the meeting, but this could have been done, and I'm not sure what changed.
Mr. Gilly, follow up.
I don't think, Ms. Rose, I don't think that I heard anything in the motion about a termination for cause, without cause, or any termination. I think this is more along the lines of it could go any which way, one of three ways, the way I understand it. Not as we heard a couple of weeks ago through the media and all staff emails, but I don't think I heard that in the motion. Did I?
Nope.
No.
Well, the man's gonna be gone in a year. What are we gonna talk about his contract for?
He already has a contract that there's no need to discuss the contract. You either accept his contract and you fulfill it, or you terminate him. I mean, that's the action. You have to decide.
Well, I think the action could go either which way in 15 days. I don't think we have to state the action. I don't think we have to state a for cause or without cause, regardless of the fact that's exactly what the board attorney said in his rendering to us, is as long as there's 15 days notice, you could do a for cause, without cause, or no cause, not even have a cause, an action on it. But it would end all of this back and forth and media blitz and emails and accusations and everything else. We'll have a meeting in front of the public, and we won't do nothing behind closed doors, and we'll do everything in front of public and get it over with. And we'll know for sure right then.
And I would agree with that, is that I think a board meeting is the place to do that, and as much as we love our friends in the media, you know, duking it out in the media is probably not the appropriate. In my opinion, that is probably not the appropriate area to do it, so I'm saying put your cards on the table at a board meeting, get it all out there, and whether we take no action, you know, or whatever we do, that
The
needs to be
public's at least
decided.
been notified 15 days and not through Thunder Radio or not through all staff emails if we're considering action or going to do action or not.
Mr. Crabtree, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I listened pretty closely to what Mr. Ballard said in his motion and what he wants to discuss. And the minute I heard that he wants to start discussing setting up a committee to research for our new director of education, I clearly understand that it presupposes you've already made up your mind that you're not going to and you're going to do whatever it takes to get rid of Dr. Lawson. And that's pretty clear in the wording that you stated, Mr. Ballard.
I don't think that's true. I think that
Oh, you did state.
I
You
said
did
that there
clearly
is
state
over a
you
year
wanted to
left.
start a committee to start searching for a new director of education. That tells me you've already made up your mind, at least yours, and possibly others on the board, that you're going to get rid of him. So what's the discussion for? Why do we need the meeting? You've already made that, but you've already had your chance to do that back in February when Miss Rose and I proposed that we dismiss him. So I see no point in having the meeting at all. I see no point in having the meeting at all.
Okay, Mr. Ballard, you first, and then you.
Okay, what I said was that Dr. Lawson has a little over a year left on his contract. That's going to go by a lot faster than you think. And right now, we don't have any criteria set up. We don't have a committee. We don't know how long it's going to take to search. Are we going to use TSBA or not? That is not a whole lot of time to really get what we need. So if you're going to wait till 6 weeks before the end of the contract to start searching for a new director, that's a problem for me. So I'd say get it going now so that we understand what we want and the availability of people that we might want to bring in. So.
And you mean to say that that doesn't presuppose that you're going to terminate him?
The board has not
Seems
voted
pretty
on
clear
that.
to me that that's what
Mr.
you're
Crabtree?
stating.
Mr. Gilly, go ahead.
Mr. Crabtree, back in February when we voted the third time, no on the contract, we had a secondary motion that 9 times out of 10, we don't get allowed secondary motions in here, but we had a secondary motion to terminate without cause and pay him out effective July the 1st. Nobody had knew of that. Nobody had thought of that. Nobody was anticipating that. And that's why that vote didn't happen. I didn't even vote for that night. Nobody anticipated that at that time. At this time, with everything going on, and and this ain't the place for that, but it's coming. This is 15 days notification that some kind of action is going to take place. Don't know what. I think that's what this motion is about.
Well,
you can reread it if we can figure out
well,
what all it was.
I hate to always hear that something's coming and I don't ever see it. And I hate to call a meeting on something.
I
know, but I've been hearing
this
something's
is.
been coming for a long
No.
time.
This is between us. This is between us and some traffic that went out, media involved, and everyone else. And we will deal with that later.
Mr. Gilly, you've confused me again, which you commonly do. I don't.
I commonly confuse you to get on Thunder Radio and tell Thunder Radio that not to mention, even if I did, where's the confidence? Where's the confidentiality between the board attorney and a board member? Where's that? Why before Thunder Radio or anyone else got all of this made up story?
Everything is in public and everything.
You're exactly right, and we're right here in the public.
Look at our emails.
We're right here in the public. When every bit of that come out on Thunder Radio, and why did almost 800 person all staff email come out before any bit of that from Mr. Lawson?
And this is the reason I think we need a meeting to get our minds back in the same direction and map out what we're going to do the next year, because we need to do something. And I agree with Mr. Gilly on the issue of when we voted that night on that motion to dismiss without cause. I don't think all of us understood what that meant. And, I did make the remark, did that mean that we would pay out his salary from July 1st on? And I couldn't make a decision at that time thinking that we would be spending taxpayers' money to buy out his contract. I think that's something that had to be thought out before that decision is made. And maybe this is what the meeting could accomplish. One of 3 things. We buy him out. He's dismissed with cause. I don't know any cause at this point, but that's an option. Or 3, continue for a year and maybe discuss some things that we would like for you to accomplish in that next year, and that we not be an adversary, that we work together for this next year and everybody leave on a good footing. Because I think at this point it's gotten to where it's adversarial, and maybe I'm taking some of those things wrong that are sent out to people, but I speak for myself, and I think all the other board members do too, that we don't need anyone analyzing what we think, and we speak for ourselves, and it's public knowledge.
Well said, and I would like to add too that if the board decides to move forward and keep things the same for the next year or so, then we come up with some ground rules as Ms. Jones suggested, and have some civility, because it's kind of gotten a little out of hand, and it is, from what I hear out there, it's causing, stress and consternation in people and chaos at times and unnecessary drama. So I think, whatever option you choose, if we choose to move forward for the next year, what are the ground rules? And let's work together and not be opposed to each other. And I'm in spite of what Mr. Crabtree says, I am willing to hear all sides of the issue, but I think they need to get aired out in a board meeting and not through the media. And that is my point here.
Well,
And we love the media.
my last thing I would say is that, yeah, I wouldn't vote for something I didn't understand. And I think it was pretty clear that night when we made the motion and we voted on it. I think it was extremely clear. And so if I don't
Nobody was ready
understand the
to do-
motion,
nobody
I wouldn't
wanted
talk
to do
on it.
that.
And plus, on the secondary motions, I wish you would verify that, Mr. Gill. I believe what we did 100% of secondary motions tonight, and I think 90% are not allowed. I don't know. If you come back with
Secondary
me,
motion.
I would like you to document that and give it to me.
When the action item had been voted on, when the action item of his contract had been voted on, and
I
then
did
we
one
go into
tonight.
another
I
one.
allowed us. It's on the item.
All right,
You can
all right,
have
that's fine.
more than
That's
one
fine.
motion.
No,
Mr.
that's fine.
Gilly.
That's
You
fine.
can. But
That's
I want
fine.
you to document when you make these
That's fine.
accusations.
That's fine. I just said
90%
it.
of something,
I just said it.
That is not correct.
We had an action item on a contract
Back it up.
discussion of the director's
Back it up.
contract.
Miss
No,
Rose,
you can.
did you have
no,
one more statement?
It's
I
Michael.
was hoping there would be a civil
If I may
discussion.
speak, I cleared that with Ben Torres at TSBA. I asked if it was possible, if one motion is voted down on an agenda item, if a second motion can be brought forth. And he told me that it could be. So as far as procedure was concerned, I checked my procedure ahead of time.
I think that is moot though, because I for one.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said, I agree with you, but I think that what we're talking about now is everybody clearly understood that at that moment, what we were voting on. I mean, some of us may have, some of us may not have. And it was so quick that it was a big decision to make on the spur of the moment. And so you're saying that we shouldn't vote again? That one and done. You vote and it's over.
That was, that did not follow procedure, or that was out of line with what was supposed to happen. I clarified that with TSBA, that we could have a second vote on an agenda item. An agenda item does not limit one motion, one vote.
Good to know.
When the extension of the contract was voted down, another motion could be made regarding that contract.
That is correct.
And my motion was to terminate the contract at that point without cause and pay them out.
We have a motion on the floor and a second to call this meeting.
With adequate notice.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I can say that there is currently a meeting scheduled already for June the 6th. That is a meeting that has been scheduled now for a while for the discussion of the board's self-evaluation. That's already on, that has already been posted. And so that does, June 6th would meet the 15-day minimum requirement. That's well over 15 days, whatever, that would be in excess of 20 days, according to my quick calculations. If you wanted to move out to June 6th, and now obviously any discussion of my contract would have to be the first item on the agenda. And so, but it could be put on that same date where there is already an existing meeting at the discretion of the board.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If you hold it on June the 6th, it probably doesn't make any difference, but I won't be here. I'll be out of town. So if you want the full board there, I won't be here.
And that may be one of the problems with our policy says in order for us to go over the
Self-evaluation,
the
all
entire
members
board
have
has
to
to
be
be present.
Who is our parliamentarian for the board?
There's nobody that's a formal parliamentarian.
And I think that's something that we definitely need to work on and have that in the future. And that way it's not the director telling us how to conduct the meeting and it's not one of us. We've got a parliamentarian that's, and I know before Mr. Pettigo was, and it helped with a lot of issues.
So,
so June 6th will not work.
If June 6th
for
will
the
not
board
work, we'll just have to
self-evaluation
establish a
if
date.
there's anybody not present.
Yeah, we'll have to establish a different date.
Okay, so basically what will happen is if this motion passes to have a discussion on my contract, Ms. Westmoreland will have to start contacting individuals, and there will have to be a meeting set when everybody is present. I can't even begin to guess when that would be, but Ms. Westmoreland would start that work probably tomorrow.
Yep.
And if it doesn't pass, then that doesn't have to be set. She would have to set a date for the Board of Self-Evaluation when everybody can be present.
But we'll deal with that. We just wouldn't be able to put these two together if we have one meeting. We may have to have two meetings.
This one would take the place of it on June the 6th, or is that what we're talking about?
We're saying there was already a meeting scheduled. If we wanted to coincide, if this
Right.
passed with that meeting, we could, but we will
everyone
not
has
be
to
able.
be here for that agenda item.
Do what?
Everyone has to be here for that agenda
For
item.
that,
of
they
the
don't have to
board.
be here for the directors.
No, but for the board.
For the board evaluation, in order for it to qualify for our policy.
So you can still keep the 6th date.
You could keep the 6th date for the director if that passed. Okay, let's.
Dr. Nestor, a question.
Yeah.
On for that meeting, Mr. Crabtree, could he call in or visit? Would that
Depends on the
would that be
reason he's
allowed?
unable to attend.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in a conference and I'll be there. I'll be out of touch. For the
Yes,
whole-
a conference is not allowable by state law.
Okay.
But we need,
So basically, if you don't want to put a specific date on it, Ms. Westmoreland can start that process, and she'll just make sure that whatever date it is beyond 15 days. I will say that I am visiting my son in Alaska the week of the 10th through the 14th of June, so I'm not going to be available. I don't have to be present for that discussion, but I am going to say that I am not changing my travel plans for that discussion.
Okay.
But Ms. Westmoreland can start that work when she and I have a chance to talk tomorrow.
Do we need to state if we just want to do the 6th? Keep the same date, keep the same thing we had going, just bump your one thing off the agenda that's going to be there. Or you could leave it on the agenda because not everybody's there, you skip over it.
That is just determined by if your desire is to exclude Mr. Crabtree from the discussion.
I would say it would be better to try to include everyone if we possibly can.
I would agree. I would agree.
So let's not put a date on it. Let's send out, if it passes, to come up with a date. Okay? So we're going to vote on action item number 18 to have a special call meeting to discuss director's contract. Mr. Ballard, your vote?
Aye.
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 Ms. Rose?
No.
No,
Aye.
I vote, let's see, who are we missing? Did we get everybody? No. So it passes 6-3, correct? Okay, passes 6-3. All right, so we will send out a notice and see if we can figure out a time that possibly both of them could work.
Right, it's possible.
If
Ms.
possible, instead of having to pay for additional meetings,
Ms. Westmoreland and I will visit tomorrow.
it would be
Or we'll
good
try.
to do that.
Yes.
Okay. Items for discussion. We will, let's let some folks in the back talk. Mr. Parsley.
Kind of review some things we've had going on the past couple of weeks at the high school. And I think maybe perhaps some of you had opportunity to see a little bit of it. Last week we had a couple of music concerts at the high school. It was sort of their year-end concerts, and they did recognize the seniors that are part of those groups. We had a band concert last Tuesday night, and then we had a choir concert on Thursday. Both of those were really well attended. Great crowds and just, really good music. So we were excited about those. Also last week, I believe it was on May the 2nd, and this kind of involves Hickerson, but we had Farm City Day, and some of our FFA students went out to Hickerson, and Dr. Crabtree may elaborate a little bit on that, possibly. And then also we had our FFA banquet on Friday of last week. We're just at the time of the year where we have everything you can think of going on. There are not many days where we don't have several activities. Today we had our senior awards program. Had a lot of family and friends of our seniors there. I know a couple of you were able to be there with us. And it is a long program, but as I said at the onset of it, it is well worth our time to recognize all of those senior students for their accolades, some of those being awards that they receive from the school directly, and some of those being scholarships, whether they're local or whether they're from universities. Also, I make mention that last Friday, we had our annual Dusty Elam Day, and I think most of you are probably familiar with what that is. The annual Dusty Elam benefit is always this time of year, and in fact that benefit was this past Saturday, but on the day before, the Friday before, we have Dusty Elam Day, and so our special needs students throughout the district go out to the Elam farm. Now this year they were not able to go out there due to all of the remnants of the rain. We still had a lot of muddy ground, but they went out to the detention in Morrison and had a really fun day out there. All of the special needs students met at the high school, and they were bused from the high school bus loading zone and left in a convoy, and had police escorts, and our student body actually went out to see them off and really gave them lots of support as they did that. So it was a good event for us last Friday morning as well. That's really all I wanted to share, and I know our ambassadors have quite a bit more.
Thank you. Ms. Parsley.
While she's coming up, if I may, that was a great event today. Wow, the time that was put in that and the recognition and the awards and whatever, wow, what a day. Thank you.
We've had a lot going on at Deerfield also. Every grade level has gone on a field trip, and Friday we have another school-wide field trip planned. So we've had a Otis Spunkmeyer fundraiser. We did really well with that. As far as Farm City Day goes, Hickerson was kind enough to invite our pre-K students out there, so they got a really good time, so we appreciate that. Thank you. We also had the Dusty Elam Day, but that's a big day for us at Deerfield. Our student body lines the hallways, and we see them off, see our students off and cheer them on as they head out to the Dusty Elam detention this time, because it was rained out of the farm. Let's see, we had our spring concert, so Miss Mary McCartney organized a spring concert for our school. It's the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students who are part of the ukulele club, the chorus, and the band, and she also had the 2nd grade students participate in that. And we had a lot of parents come and watch that. We are really excited about to see where our music program goes at Deerfield. We also had the middle school music program come visit our schools, and I think they went to every elementary school, and that was nice because it gave our students an opportunity to see what's available for them when they go to the middle school. They have the chorus there. They had different instruments in the band, and they went through the band and they played each instrument and let the children hear what they sound like. And it also gave them an opportunity to see former Deerfield students participating, so that they can see that that is something that they can do. Let's see, we also had our Mother's Day tea for K through 2 students, and that is always one of our biggest events. We had over 100 people sign in that day to come have tea with their little ones. We also had the 5th grade wax museum today, and that is where each 5th grader chooses a historical figure and they speak on they become them. So that's very interesting. That always amazed me at how well they can memorize like almost a 5-minute speech. So also we have the senior walk coming up. That is next Wednesday, I believe, and our Deerfield seniors, graduating seniors, come back and we get to welcome them, and they tell our student body where they are, what their plans are past their graduation, and then we have a reception for them, and then we also have a gift for them. So that's what we have going on.
Thank you. Ms. Crabtree?
Well, like they said, we hosted Baby Farm City Day at Hickerson. It was a great day. It was amazing to walk out there and see all these kids planting different crops or flowers and things like that. It was so quiet, but there were all these children everywhere, but they were focused on what they were doing, or they were playing with the baby animals, or climbing on farm machinery. Tri-Green brought out all kinds of machinery for them to get on and play on and explore, and different farmers throughout the community come out and helped every grade level plant something. The Farm Bureau ladies come out and made butter with the kids, and of course the FFA was out there with their animals, and I believe, was it Culinary Arts that came out with snacks for them, lemonade and cookies and things like that to give them a little refreshment while they were out there. So it was a great day. We also, Hickerson won the first 5th grade countywide field day. And so that was exciting for us. You know, the smallest school won. And so it was a great day. They had a great time. We avoided the rain, and they were so excited. And so last week we also sent 5 teachers to the state STEM conference. And so they came back today and they were telling me what all they've learned and how excited they are about digging back into that process and getting that redesignation. Coming up, we have lots of things coming up, but mainly we have Awards Day on May 21st at 1 p.m. And then we have graduations on the 22nd. We have kindergarten at 9, 5th grade at 11, and pre-K at 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. I want to brag on a couple of groups of kids at the middle school. First is our choir. They went to Dollywood over the weekend and competed in a great competition. Several schools competed there. Our choir placed second in their class, so that was really great. So they came home with a ginormous trophy, so that was awesome. I want to brag on one particular track member that we have who is going to the state meet. She is competing in high jump, so she's already reached a PR a couple of times through the season and will be competing again. I believe it's at Austin Peay University, so that'll be later on in the month. So super proud of her. Softball and baseball sectional tournament was this last weekend at middle school, and both our baseball and softball teams competed. Softball wound up being runner-up, which was great in the tournament, so they did a good job. And then Awards Day is Tuesday, May 21st. So if you'd like to come out, reach out, and I'll give you some times, but that'll be going on the 21st. Lots of other things going on, but we really don't have time to talk about those. So,
thank you.
Can I, real quick, just,
Yep.
I know this is out of sequence or whatever, but I'm going to put on the Chamber of Commerce hat here for just a minute because of some things that's going on with the schools. Thursday is Lemonade Day, correct?
Yes.
As everyone knows, all the lemonade stands will be set up around town, or I think there's 32 maybe. Does that sound right?
That's
32 that will be set up around town, and all the fourth grades participate in that, and we'll have those lemonade stands set up. For everything that they make, they get to donate that back to a charity that they all agree on. Plus, I think they get to spend some of the money to do something for themselves, correct? But that will be Thursday morning all over town, so if you get a chance to go out and do that, please do.
Do we know where those are?
I think if you will look on Facebook or maybe on the Chamber of Commerce site, there's a list.
I believe the Chamber of Commerce has a map.
Showing them. So, and I also think that there's another thing that maybe I heard about the high school, the ranking of the high school or something. Is that with?
Back to the microphone.
and maybe I'm speaking out of turn. I don't know. So.
You're fine, because
I'm glad to share that. So we received, it seems it's been a couple of weeks ago now, received a notification one morning, got an early email from World News and Weekly News and World Report. I was trying to remember the name of the magazine. And what they do each year is rank high schools across the country based upon all sorts of data. And I mean, it's a lot of data. Early post-secondary opportunities that are offered, early post-secondary classes that are passed, where college credit is earned. They look at the demographics of the communities that the schools are in. They look at the segments of special ed population and things like that. And basically they have this formula that they use to rank high schools. And the notification that I received is that we were being ranked one of the best high schools in the United States. Now here's what that means. Now there are thousands and thousands of high schools in the United States. I wouldn't know even how many, but they had us ranked. I believe it was right around 50 out of the high schools in Tennessee. Now that's top 10% based upon the total number of high schools in Tennessee. And again, they use a formula that they compile data, and you know, I felt like we did pretty well. It's not that we went seeking that, but they looked at a lot of stuff, and you know, you can go to the magazine's website, and you can find us right there in that list, and it's got a lot of data in there. But you know, I would think that would be something that might be helpful in drawing people to our community and things like that. I can't help but brag about it. I didn't mention it to you all. I knew that, I think you all maybe had received an email about that from Dr. Lawson a couple of weeks ago. But hey, I've conducted a few interviews over the last couple of weeks with people from other communities, people in neighboring districts, and don't think that I'm not bringing that up.
But that's 50 out of how many Tennessee high schools?
Yeah, we would be top 10% in the state. It's 500-ish high schools, I think. I don't remember the specific number, but it would be top 10% in Tennessee.
Wow.
Congratulations.
And again, they actually rank schools from all over the country.
That was your part for the board.
I'm finished.
All right, good. Mr. Ballard, you got to add anything else on tonight?
No,
All right.
I'm really not finished. I was at a meeting Saturday at the courthouse for the Historical Society here. The speaker that day was Beechcraft Heritage Museum out of Tullahoma. Not sure if everybody's familiar with that or if they've been. I've not been, but I was very impressed with the speech, the presentation that the director of the museum there gave. But I specifically asked about field trips, and I think that's free for kids to go. If teachers or principals would contact, I think that's a great opportunity. They have a ton of aircraft there and everything for the kids to see, and Gary may know more about this.
It's a very good facility, and they're very nice. If you can,
I think it's about a 2-hour tour of the facility. I think there's a place where you could have lunch there, but I know schools are so many times looking for educational opportunities to take their kids on. So
we live in an aviation community, so it'd be great.
I was very, very impressed. I plan on going myself. So
It's worth it. I encourage you to do that. It's worth it.
Ms. Jennifer, anything else?
I don't think so, not
All right.
today.
Ms. Frida?
Yeah, first of all, I want to recognize Ella. She just knocked it out of the park today at that awards thing, so she's to be congratulated, and I know you're going to make your mama proud and all of us on the board.
Congratulations.
And you'll probably do the same thing next year. No, I want everybody to know that I didn't get to attend the retreat when the board worked all day on the budget and all the things that we discussed tonight. My husband was in the hospital, and that left me at a kind of a uncertain position on things because I did not get the in-depth, you might say the in-depth direction on the budget. And I want everybody to know, and I want Dr. Lawson to know this too, that I am for teacher salaries raises no matter what. If we have the funding, if it's 10%, 12%, or whatever, I just was not comfortable in going that way today. That's the reason I abstained, because I want to keep it. I don't want us to get into a position where we have to reduce anybody, and that's all employees, so that's a big step. So I applaud you, and I trust that we're correct, that we can keep this up and hopefully increase it more and more, because I know we've really outdone the city. They're only doing 3%. So, and again, the awards day was really neat, and kudos to the staff, and it's always so well organized out there at high school.
Thank you. Ms. Rose, anything?
I want to thank Mr. Dungwood for making sure that I could be in on this. My doctor said I really didn't need to be around people today, so that's why I did not come. But I appreciate what he did to get me connected so I could be part of this tonight.
Thanks for coming in. Mr. Crabtree. Mr. Cordell, anything else?
Yeah, let me add a couple, or mention a couple of points. I know TSBA is having a lot of webinars for board members. And they have a series now called Camp TSBA, and there's 6 different components of that, about an hour per session, and that is really interesting. And they had the one, I guess, last week on some members from the comptroller staff was there, and they took 55, 6 minutes on that. It was really rewarding, and I encourage you can go back and board members can go back and pull that up and listen to that, but I encourage all of you to do that. And the other, I think there's one coming up, well, whenever, a few more days, but those are really interesting to hear. And I know TSBA, when you go to those webinars, and they're pretty well all day. I know Mr. Crabtree went to one about a month ago or 3 weeks ago, and but we don't have many. Statewide, we don't have many board members visiting those or watching those, and I encourage you to do that. That's some good information. And secondly, I don't want to stagger this out too much longer, but Dr. Lawson, could you give us a little update as to, I'm trying to process this, on the law that was passed regarding teachers and handguns and whatever. I understand, now correct me if I'm wrong, that most superintendents, they can veto that, and most superintendents have already said that they would. And I would like to point out that I did some research on this, and there's right at 500 schools in Tennessee right now that do not have SROs. So to protect our families, our children, and our staff and whatever, I just want us to look at that, especially those schools where there's no SROs, that there's money. I think there's $140 million allocated to that by the state this year, and only $98 million of that has been utilized. So we're putting a lot of money left on the table, and I'm just concerned about the safety of our staff, our people, and our children. And I don't understand all that, the mix on that, but I would just say that if we had a teacher or two, not trying to put more pressure on teachers at all, but if we had a teacher or two in each school that could, and it's, I think, 40 hours of whatever to get certified for that might give an extra measure of protection in our schools, and that really concerns me. So I just want to mention that to you. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Gilley, you got anything else? Or okay, everybody, all right. Committee reports. Dr. Lawson?
There have not been any committee meetings since the last meeting. We do anticipate having a policy committee meeting here within the next couple of weeks. We're going to try to get, well, let's just say next 3 weeks. We're going to try to get through the end of school and schedule that prior to the regularly scheduled June meeting. But there have not been any committee meetings in the last few weeks.
Well, finally, Riley and Ella, finally, we get to y'all.
Still awake.
Y'all have the floor and let us know what's going on at the high school. Is this your last meeting? Oh, that's very sad.
And today she was called up several times for recognition and awards and whatever. I was impressed.
Okay, so these coming up weeks are pretty busy for the high school, especially seniors. This week was our senior week, and we have some dress-up days for seniors. Today was Dress to Impress because of the because of the awards day being moved due to the storms. Tomorrow, SGA, which is our student government, hosts the 9th grade tour. So the Raider Academy students will come to the high school tomorrow, have a little meeting with the administration, and then the student government members will take them on a tour of the school. Wednesday morning, as mentioned, is the senior walk for the seniors. So elementary school alumni will go to the elementary schools we went to and get to talk to the students and walk through the halls and just have some time with those kids and tell them what we're going to do after we graduate. Also on Wednesday is our yearbook day. So our yearbooks will be handed out during homeroom on Wednesday, and you can have them signed and stuff during your classes if the teacher allows you, I guess. Thursday, as mentioned also, is the Lemonade Day, and seniors in the clubs, FPLA and DECA, which are business clubs, are volunteering for Lemonade Day. I was chosen for New Union, so I'll be at New Union's Lemonade Day. But there will be seniors there as well. If any of y'all are able to visit the lemonade stands, you'll see seniors there helping through the business department. What else? The senior sunset follows the senior parade on Monday, so we're excited for that. We also have AP testing going on for these past 2 weeks. I know Riley took one today, I think. Yeah, those are long. I took an AP test in sophomore year. They're long and treacherous tests, but they're worth it if you get the credit, so I hope that those are going well. Graduation is on the 24th, and then following that is project graduation. And then I just want to thank you guys because I was named the recipient of the Coffee County Board of Education Scholarship, so I want to thank you guys. And yeah, this is my last meeting, so thank you guys for the opportunity to be here and to talk with y'all on the board.
Okay, we have to put you on the spot, though. What are your future plans?
Okay, so I'm going to MTSU in the fall to major in psychiatry, and then I'm minoring in foreign language.
All right.
So I plan to work in a heavy-duty psych ward somewhere big.
You should be busy.
Yeah, I want to be hands-on.
That's right. In the world today, yeah.
You know her, that makes perfect sense.
Congratulations. It's been a pleasure to have you here, and really appreciated both y'all's input. And your input several times, you did offer that, and you're very mature, and you will do well in life.
Thank you.
I just really feel that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
All right, Riley, follow that.
Okay, so on our tennis team, Riley McNamara advanced to the region finals to compete for the 4th year in a row for her to compete at the regionals. Softball plays tonight in Nolensville to keep their season alive. Baseball concluded their season a few weeks ago, and Xavier Randolph advances to state for track and field. So, yeah. Also, this is my last one too because this position won't be like a set thing next year. So thank y'all for letting me be a part of it and everything.
That's right. It is going to change. So thank you for serving because it is a service to come in here with us. So
Thank you.
We appreciate it. You're still welcome to come next year. All right.
Have term limits.
The director's report, Dr. Lawson.
Real quick, Mr. Parsley, Ms. Helms, did anybody mention senior walks?
They were mentioned there on Wednesday.
What was the date?
Wednesday.
This week.
Yeah,
this week.
Oh, okay, this week, okay, so that's,
the 15th.
the 15th. I was trying to keep track and I didn't have that written down. Okay,
We asked the students, senior students, to try to be back to the building by 10 a.m., so they're generally doing that.
perfect. Okay,
They're early.
I just missed that. I knew they were in the morning. I just couldn't remember what day. Basically, I had a statement, basically a request on communication that I was going to read off, but as far as for the next year on how that would be conducted. But since we're going to have a meeting about my contract, I will wait to see how that meeting is resolved before I read that statement. So as far as the director's report, like I said, it's I did want to respond to Mr. Cordell. The teacher gun carry law that was passed, it's still as of a week and a half ago last I heard, it still had not been officially signed by the governor, but they expect it to be. So it may have been in that time. Basically, the way it spells it out is that if 3 parties agree that carry can occur in that school, then carry can occur at that school as long as that teacher meets certain criteria. And those three people are the principal, the director of schools, and the head of the local law enforcement, in this case, the sheriff. Sheriff Parton and I, we have texted back and forth to set up a meeting to discuss this particular item, but we have not had that meeting yet. And so that's just where we are in that stage. So basically, not had any official discussions on that particular law. But those are the three things that have to happen. I guess technically the way it's done, you could potentially have a district where some schools did and some schools didn't, because all three parties have to agree. So if you had a district where local law enforcement agreed and the director agreed and the principal didn't, then that school would not have that as an allowable option. But again, I'm not prepared to make any comments about that until Sheriff Parton and I have had a chance to visit. And like I said, our only communications so far have been by text. Let's see.
Thank you for that clarification.
Absolutely.
I was very confused by it all.
That's the way that particular one works. What I'm hoping is I have a meeting on Wednesday in Murfreesboro. TOS, the Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents, they organize a post-legislative session meeting in each grand region. Middle Tennessee, we will be meeting there. Chuck Cagle will be present, the TOS lobbyists will be present, and they're going to explain all the new laws that came about. My guess is there will be some time spent on that. So I'll end up with probably even more information than I have now.
Thank you.
ESSER update. Basically, I can tell you that with the cancellation of the handrails and that kind of thing, we will be meeting. We've already met some recently in order to discuss options. We will be looking at options for that, the funding that's not going to be used for the bleachers. We have to make sure that it is allocated. This doesn't change the extra money has to be allocated that was given in ESSER, the 100,000 plus, and then we'll deal with this extra money that had been budgeted for bleacher updates. We'll look at that and options. We will move forward just like we always have, and do the best that we can with that money. We don't plan to send anything back to the federal government, and so we plan to use it all, but we plan to use it wisely. I will try to keep you informed as those things change. And I guess that's about it.
I have a question on that. Is it possible for ESSER funding to pay for fencing around the playgrounds at the elementary schools if they don't have fencing? Because that's very safety issue, and I understand the PTO had to pay for theirs at New Union.
As far as whether that is an instructional space and keeping students spread apart and that kind of thing, I mean, obviously Miss Cole has a contact at the state that she sends those requests to. By all means, we can check. I don't know how we would tie it in, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
Well, what about signs at the middle school for exit and entrance?
No, ma'am. I can tell you that wouldn't be something that would be covered by ESSER, but that.
It's not been put up, but I think they've put the order in for it.
Yes, the signs have been ordered. They've just not been installed yet.
Good.
But that's not an ESSER thing.
And can you refresh my memory? How much was spent on those microphones for the teachers? Are they being used? Are they utilized? Are they really worth what we paid for them? Was it $1 million?
It was.
Would be the best ones to answer that.
Right. So it's worth $1 million of that money for. Okay.
They're used at the high school.
Okay.
Most teachers use it at the high school.
I've heard positive from that. Yes. Very positive. So. Okay.
Okay.
With that,
I'm done.
I think we've accomplished a lot tonight, and I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn. Everybody, favor say aye. Have a great night.
Go pay my bill now. Give it to